right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The time is 6:10. This is the second of a series of budget workshop meetings of the Howell Township Mayor and Council.
Hold them.
Okay. Mr. Davis, would you please read the opening statement and then call the roll?
Yes, sir. The minutes reflect that adequate notice that holding of this special meeting of the Howell Township Council was provided for in the following manner: by the posting of copies of said notice upon the bulletin board in the Township Municipal Building on February 15, 2006, by the faxing of copies of said notice to the Asbury Park Press for publication and to the Star Ledger on February 15, 2006, and by the filing of a copy of said form of notice in the Township Clerk's office on February 15, 2006. The public will be allowed to attend this meeting and will be allowed to participate pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Law. The public is reminded that civility and decorum will be maintained during the meeting. Any contracts awarded at this meeting or between now and the next meeting will be required to comply with the requirements of the public laws of 1975, Chapter 127, NJAC 17:27. In accordance with the Fire Prevention Code, be advised that this facility is designed with 3 emergency exits for your safety. The locations are as follows. Upon exiting the meeting room to the rear, there are to immediate left and immediate right, and at the front of the meeting room to the left of the dais. Furthermore, smoking is not permitted in the municipal building. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for a future broadcast on Howell TV 77. Mr. Malabé?
Mr. Malabé is detained. He should be here momentarily.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Present.
Mr. Tabasco?
Likewise, Deputy Mayor should be here any minute.
Mr. Walsh?
Present.
Mayor DeBella?
Here. All right, this is our second of a series of what I suspect will be several workshop sessions regarding the proposed 2006 municipal budget. It is also the first meeting that our new township manager is in place. So without any further ado, I know that you've been here all of 2 long days, Mr. Zanecki, but I'd like to turn it over to you to get us up to speed on where we are from a budget perspective and guide us through what needs to be looked at this evening, please.
Okay. Well, Mayor, I'm in my 36th hour as an employee of Howell Township, and it's been great so far.
Welcome.
Thank you. I know most of the employees in the council, you're probably in 4th or 5th gear in terms of thinking about the budget, and I'm just really getting started. I spent the past 2 days really getting to know the staff, getting to know the departments, and for the better part of today, really trying to get a general sense of the budget presentations you're going to hear tonight. So I'm learning as we go, and I ask the staff to bear that in mind and that to really talk freely about what they perceive their needs to be, the direction that they want to take their departments in, to the extent that they want to make changes or improvements. But at the end of the evening, I've asked Mr. Filiatro to go through the big budget picture with respect to the information we have so far. So the information you're going to hear from the department heads and division heads really is more in terms of where they would like to see their departments go and what they're requesting. And it's really meant at this point to be as educational for you as it is for me, although you probably know a lot more at this point than I do. So tonight we're going to hear from purchasing, construction code, the municipal court, public works and engineering, as well as building and grounds. And public works, engineering, and building and grounds will likely be here together.
Okay. All right, so let the record also reflect that Councilman Malabé has arrived, and we're going to start with, you said Public Works?
No, purchasing.
I'm sorry, purchasing. This is Chtita Bushkin. Welcome, Ms. Bushkin. It's always nice to see you. We'll turn it over to you and the manager to call our attention to the appropriate pages and the line item budget. Should we start with the line item and then do that department's capital? Is that okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Salary and wages begin at page J4. The other expense continues over in page J5.
All right, so call everyone's attention to J4. This is in the purchasing department. Okay. Down at the bottom. Okay. Ms. Bushkin, is there anything you'd like to open up with? Any comments, remarks, observations with respect to this operating budget?
No, I think everything continues in the same course as it has
printing needs have significantly dropped in that we've been able to purchase copy machines that have replaced our need to go to outside vendors for those simple projects. The only significant difference that you might note is in the general printing budget. Originally, we asked for $20,000, but became aware of the fact that we would be doing new tax bill forms, which we got an estimate of $13,000 for this first initial year. This is purely a guesstimate as to how much it will actually run us, but we do have to include it in our printing budget to cover that expense. The printing also does cover all the UCC forms, which are the forms that the building department uses.
So under general printing, where it looks at an approved amount of $33,000 in the second line on J5, that's up 65%. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, that's exactly it.
And that is
It's 13
attributable to?
the new tax bill forms that are going to be printed for the first time this year.
What's different about, for my own ignorance, forgive me if I may, what's different about the new tax bill versus the old tax bill
We're
forms?
going to a self-mailer.
Okay.
You know, how you get the forms that have been already folded by machine and processing one thing without having to sort or stuff or anything by manpower. Certainly, it's cost-effective to go and let a machine print, fold, and glue, you know, the tax bill and not have to have anybody do anything but sort them by department and get postage on them. So that's what the new one is. It really is a little bit higher cost in paper and forms, but it saves on about a week's worth of manpower.
Will we, excuse me, will we see elsewhere any of the efficiencies, or is that something that's further downstream?
I don't recall seeing a projection as far as efficiencies. It's like 1/5 of the time that the pushes that the tax collector has, because she has the 4 quarters and then printing the tax bill. So I certainly would hope to see a savings in the overtime, especially over in the tax building, due to the fact that we won't be sitting there over I don't know how many nights and/or weekends stuffing envelopes.
So if we were to look at, knowing our policy on overtime, if we were to look at the overtime budget in the tax department, we should see some reduction when we get to that?
Yes, in fact, we as you know, Bruce and I as managers in the November meeting did reduce that $3,000.
Okay. Is there anything else anyone has any comment on? I mean, it's an insignificant function as a percentage of the total, but it looks like there's a 50% increase in training and education. Is there a new program or something?
Yes, the purchasing assistant has received her RPPS, which now requires that she maintain classes in order to keep that designation. So now we both need to attend classes on an ongoing basis.
Okay. Mr. Walsh, any questions on this operating budget?
No?
Ms. Showmaker? Mr. Malabi?
No, sir.
Okay. Is
One capital item.
one capital item, and where is that?
That's G6.
G6. Okay.
This is an ongoing program where we constantly add new machines and weed out other machines through the course of time. We found it to be much more cost-effective than doing cost per copies, which we've looked into repeatedly year after year. We're able to utilize a machine to its fullest, and then upon the recommendation of the maintenance company that maintains these machines, better circulate the machines. If they feel something is overutilized or underutilized, we shift it around to another department and move things around so that we get the most value for these machines and extend their life as long as possible. And so, as you can see, this is an ongoing program. It replaces usually 1 to 2 machines a year.
So this is at 75,000?
Yes.
I just have a general question about copying. sort of at large, if I may, is, my suspicion is, and just let the record reflect that the deputy mayor is here, as it relates to copies, every building, I suspect, has a machine, every department has some sort of a machine. In your view, has there been any consideration given to sort of constructing a copy central, where perhaps there'd be one large operation that handles all of the copying, with some exception, dispatch departments that are not central to this building, obviously, but has there been thought given to creating a command center for copies where everything sort of goes through one area, and does that
Well,
make any
All
sense?
new machines now are networked through our system, so that anyone using their computer can print directly to a copier or download something directly that way. Every machine that comes in now, currently, will have that feature. We do have larger machines in each of the buildings, such as the engineering department. Just to give you some idea, engineering's in the EPC building in 2005 did over 250,000 copies. Same thing with the second floor in this building, the administration building, did 225,000 copies. Recreation, which is one of our largest users, did almost 500,000 copies. So we do put these machines through a lot of work. And we do rotate them. In other words, it may be too old a machine for us to continue using, but we may have a place in planning that could use it and benefit by it. So the copier company that maintains our machines moves them for us and rearranges them so that they're working in an efficient way.
You have a question?
No, we've been on this maintenance program now for a few years.
A number
and
of years, yes.
It has worked it's worked well.
One of the problems that you're suggesting over centralized that we've considered is usually that requires manpower, which we just can't, we don't have a person that we can hire that we can dedicate to, say, a copy room, mail room type of
Right.
arrangement, which is normally what would happen. And I don't think that would really, with the cost of salaries, benefits, and everything else, it really would be.
Yeah, the way I looked at it, and clearly you're running a top-flight process with this, was that if you were to take different clerks from all the different departments and sort of figure out what one full-time equivalent would be, if they were to have
But
it
there's
collectively
also-
shifted, but they do have the responsibilities, and so.
Another problem is if the machine is out of service, that causes a problem. So it's always best to have at least two machines functioning equally, that we can depend
Are
on
our
one.
machines also scanners? Do they have
Yes, they
scanning
do.
capability?
I do all the scanning of contracts into, the computer as well.
Terrific. Any additional comments on this particular item?
I would like to ask, do we have maintenance contracts on all of these?
Yes, we
Do
do.
the same people we buy them from?
I'm sorry?
Do the same people we buy them from?
They happen to be separate contracts that are both on the state contract. We've been using the same company because they have been very efficient in their response time to us, and they have maintained the machines adequately, and as well have given us the feedback that we need in order to make intelligent decisions for purchasing new machines in the future.
What company would that be, may I ask?
Image Systems.
We also pool, it's one master maintenance contract with a total copy number, so if one machine goes over, if another machine is under, we don't pay any extra for it.
Currently, we're insured for 2.1 million copies a year. We have not gone over that because we've gotten good estimates and kept track of each of the machine usage throughout the year so that we're not overpaying for maintenance and as well as not underpaying and then having to pay an overage per copy, which can be very costly. And they do not charge us any additional fees for adding a new machine into our fleet, so to speak. We're still using the same number of copies, and they cover us in that way.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? We're on G6, Deputy Mayor, on copy equipment. Is that all, Ms. Buchanan?
That's it.
Anything else, Mrs. Zanicki, on this one? No. Okay. Thank you for coming out, and we appreciate your patience, but sorry we got started a little late.
Thank you very much.
Always nice to see you.
Good seeing you.
All right, who's next?
Construction code, sir.
What is?
Construction code.
Construction code.
Page J9.
J9 on operating.
Yes.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Phillips. How are you?
Good.
All right, we're on J9. Starting at the top of the construction code. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Phillips, is there anything you want to open up with, comments, general observations on your particular budget before we get into the review?
No, not at this time.
Okay. And looking at your overall budget, and just, obviously, looks like it's 3% over last year. Total construction code is up 6. Can you walk us through what some of the increases represent?
Well, what was the salary increase this year?
Yeah, putting aside salary, if you go down just to the operating portion, the salary looks like it's up 6.56%, which I had a question on for Mr. Filiatro, but,
We had an increase of 1 employee.
mhm.
Okay.
Is that what it is? Yeah.
Chad,
when
pull
you-
that microphone over to you.
Yeah, we had one employee that was added in July of last year, or August. So it was only a partial part of last year, and of course, it's going to be budgeted for the entire year this year.
And just for everyone's benefit, Mr. Walsh wasn't here at the time as well. What was that one position that was added?
Clerk typist. Clerk typist.
Yes, clerk typist. You got to get the mic closer.
Yeah, Chad,
Oh, I thought he was asking you.
No, whomever.
He didn't address it anyways.
we have to record all this, and it's being taped, so you have to
Okay.
almost eat the mic.
All right, so it was a clerk typist added?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything else in here, like safety supplies, nothing seems, dollar-wise, nothing really appears to be,
No, it's all normal.
The only item I would make note of is only because it's a relatively large amount, there is $20,000 that's budgeted each year that we don't necessarily expend if we don't have to, and that's for
Demolition.
demolition of
Right.
condemned buildings, relocation of people on buildings and all, and you need that money to begin with if in fact we are faced with that situation. And I think there was one situation maybe 4 years ago that I can remember. We're good at avoiding it, but
Well,
we
we have
do
another
need that.
we have another one with the Pine View Grocery Store, which, I know that you gentlemen and ladies are working on, but that looks like it needs to be, something might need to be started.
There's already been a violation notice issued. So
Right. Okay. Anyone have any questions on construction code?
Man, they're all similar.
It's online.
Mr. Walsh, anything? Showmaker?
Everything's online.
Mr. Malavi, Mr. Tabasco? Okay. What?
G1.
just- I'm sorry?
G1.
Well,
G1?
there are 3 capital items, or 2, actually.
Your replacement vehicles?
G1.
Yeah, under vehicles.
Which vehicle specifically is this?
2 replacement vehicles.
The 2 replacement construction code, is that it?
Yes, yes, sir.
What are we replacing?
Yeah, what is it in terms of the maintenance plan? How do these stack up? Are they,
Okay.
whomever, I'm
Well,
sorry.
About a month ago, one of my vehicles was taken off the road. It was budgeted in 204 to have a vehicle, which we didn't get. So that vehicle needs to be replaced, plus the one that I put in for 206 will be needed to replace an older vehicle, which could face the same demise as the last one
Is
because
it-
of the age.
Let me just refresh. The council, council authorized the one vehicle at our last meeting.
Yes.
Based on the description, which was really the second vehicle in the '05 budget that Mr. Phillips requested, but was not.
The 05, okay.
He was only approved for one. So by virtue of this replacement, that really fulfills what he originally requested. Not, we had no choice, obviously, because the vehicle was taken off the road.
There was I think Mr. Phillips mentioned something about 2004. Did we take that out of the budget, or was it in the budget? So that was removed from the '04 budget. The one we approved the other night is one of the 2.
Right.
So does this still need to say 2 if we've already taken money out of capital?
As I understand Chet's explanation, the one we authorized, it was one that was not approved in '05, that was taken out of the '05
Right.
request.
Okay.
Now what we're doing is playing catch-up. And, in order to prevent playing catch-up, back in November when he was budgeting and knew that, didn't know he was going to have that car pulled out, he needs 2 replaced before they get pulled off the road.
What year we
These are
replace them?
2 in addition to the one that came off the road. That's my understanding.
Can we just speak about
I'm
the
confused.
truck we were buying for $18,000? Wasn't that about the number?
Right.
And not 25?
No,
Seven.
it's 18.6,
18.6.
right, 18.661.
And this has 50, which would be roughly 25 each.
Mm.
So,
Well, based on what the state contract is, you could probably cut it to 40. Because by the time we get to ordering these, we don't know for sure what the price is going to be. This past year, it was 18.6, did you say?
18.660.
18.6, yeah, that was the number that
I
you
would
spoke
not
about.
recommend budgeting exactly the same.
but if we ordered it now, if we ordered it when the budget is adopted in June, what,
If you order in June, you're going to get an '07 model because state contract as far as the vehicles, those vehicles be gone. And you'll be in the fall and getting an '07 model.
all right, what's the pleasure of the council?
In essence, we're going to get 3 new vehicles for that department, correct?
Yes.
One's already off the road, so it sounds like there'll be 2 vehicles that are coming, that similarly will now be available. I mean, are these vehicles just crushed into the ground, they're not operable, they're
I
in
don't have
bad
a-
shape?
I'm not using a township vehicle right now, I use my personal vehicle, because my vehicle went to the gentleman who's had his vehicle taken off the road. So that has to be addressed, plus we have to take 2 others. We have over 100,000 miles on 2 of our vehicles. And when we take them for servicing, the guys down there say, hey, how much longer, we don't know. And it's, we don't want to happen by surprise. All of a sudden, we're without a car, because that puts everybody in a little bit of a dilemma.
Chet, now, we can all hear you, but you're definitely not being recorded, just so you
Think
know.
Is there
You need to speak right into the mic.
Yeah.
testing? How's that?
No, it's just like an inch away from
Okay.
you.
Chet, just for my knowledge, how many vehicles are there assigned to the department?
We have 1 for each inspector plus myself, which would be 10.
10 vehicles.
And we'd like to have a spare vehicle due to the fact that when a car goes in for servicing, we need a replacement for that gentleman.
So you've typically had 10 vehicles,
Yes.
but now you're down to,
No, I typically have 11,
you typically had 11,
down to,
you're down to 10.
He agrees.
And then, so this would bring it to 13.
no, because once we replace the ones that are there now, they're going to be taken off the road.
Oh, okay.
Whichever one has the highest mileage and the
All right, let's-
maintenance record is.
I know, but can we discuss this?
At a high level,
Yeah, I'm gonna highlight some
probably, without getting into the specifics of what it says.
Okay, this department has 10 motor vehicles. 5 are pre-1998 that have over 70,000 miles. 2 of the vehicles have over 120,000 miles recorded. Correct? Millie's department, they service all those vehicles. She should pull a seat up.
Jeep Cherokee.
Ms. Bernier, if you wouldn't mind, just for the record, just introduce yourself. Is there a second microphone down there?
Yeah.
Is the red light on?
Yes,
Okay, please.
okay.
You are, again, I'm
Joseph
sorry.
Bernier, Director of Public Works,
Thank
Vehicle
you.
Maintenance, whatever. Okay. We just pulled a Jeep off the road just about a month ago. It came in for some work to be done, and we took the floor pads off, and the hole in the carriage was rotted through. I mean, totally. We couldn't even plate it if we wanted to. But in Chet's department, they do have vehicles that eventually will come off the road, because I have one, being the Director of Public Works and in charge of vehicle maintenance along with my chief mechanic. When anybody's car, any department's car comes in for even a routine service, our mechanics go over the whole vehicle. It's up on the lift, they look under, you know, muffler, exhaust system, and everything. And his vehicles are, they're put together with Band-Aids right now, 2 of them, I know.
Well, I think the only thing that this sort of begs the question on, and this isn't to talk about it department by department, because I think we've got the best mechanical crew in that garage, you know, bar none. But at some point, they can only,
In fact, we've been
do
told
so
that.
much. Yeah, I mean, there's no question about it. But this really begs the question of a sort of fleet maintenance plan, so that there is a documented binder that's got every vehicle in it with the VIN number and the number of miles, and so that we've got something, I think, more documented on every single, the chief probably
we
has
do.
that,
We
but
do.
I think from a replacement perspective.
Well, that's, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
We have that system, and we try to squeeze as much life out of these vehicles as we can. I mean, we could have a 5-year replacement plan, but we may also determine that the vehicle doesn't need to be replaced.
That's right.
So we kind of use them until they virtually can't be used anymore, which was the case in this Jeep, for safety reasons, and that's where we're at. And we bring to you each year what we need to maintain the fleet in decent working order without driving unsafe vehicles, and having vehicles available for the inspectors. Because if they don't have a vehicle, it shuts down that operation in that particular area.
Okay.
It could be plumbing, electrical, whatever.
So-
And that's what they do.
All right, so back to these 2 vehicles. You think we could reduce this amount to 40? Does anyone have any concerns or questions with respect to these additional acquisitions? Mr. Malabe?
No, at this time, no.
Deputy Mayor?
No, the only thing I'll bring up at a high level is that we had heard from Mr. Sinicki, in fact, during his interview process about some of the things you just brought up. So we need to look at that later in general for all the departments, how we go about doing this fleet maintenance, and whether we still insist on having township cars versus people having, maybe in some other departments, I mean, their own vehicles and use. And this department's a little different because they're going out to the field and beating them up and stuff, but
I'd like to make that comment. I want to make sure that we're buying vehicles that are suitable for that particular department also.
Yeah.
I think what I hear council saying is they'd like to see a type of plan similar to what we have for photocopy machines, basically.
And police department.
you're going to have to
Type of
speak up too, Tom.
Basically, what I hear council saying is they'd like to see a plan. Maybe some of you have, some of you haven't, but you'd like to see a report within the context of this budget of where we stand on vehicles.
I think
And,
that's fair to say.
We'll work on that for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Walsh, you have any comments, observations on this?
Not at this time.
To Mr. Filiatro, from an accounting perspective, are we allowed to charge back the cost of vehicles and other services back into, whether it's fees, permits, whatever the case may be, these new expenditures that we're getting? In other words, can we take these new expenses and build them into what are charged to the end user?
Offset, yeah.
An offset,
You mean in context to like the construction fees?
correct.
Not directly, no. We do that when we do the analysis the state requires as far as whether or not the construction code fees are too high, too low, whether we're making money or losing money on the department. But those fees are general revenues of the town. They're not directly offset into any of the costs. So, you know, we do look into it when Mr. Phillips analyzes the construction code operations with the report the state has to do. He does factor in capital improvements and cost of vehicles when he's looking at the cost of operating the department. But we can't take his fees and say dedicate his fees or raise his fees in order to fund the vehicle.
Okay.
Are we limited on what we could charge in fees? Code enforcement?
The only limit we have is that when we run a surplus for a number of years, the state will come in and say you have to adjust your fees to compensate. They don't want us to run a surplus. It's supposed to be a break-even proposition.
Right.
What are we doing now?
Over 200,000 in surplus.
So why don't we?
For how long have we done?
I've been construction official, so I'd say approximately 3 years.
About 3 years. We did run a deficit for a number of years. They've been allowing us to recoup the deficit, so they're not forcing us to reduce the fees. But we are running at a surplus right now. We are collecting more fees than it's costing us to run the department.
Are we knocking on the door of having to lower our fees?
No. Not in
At this
department.
point, I would say no, and I'll tell you another reason why I would say no. With our hopefully new system coming in for our computer, our software, the state does allow us to to adjust our fees to compensate for part of the cost of the implementation of a software system or data storage system being used for the construction department. I'm not quite sure if there's a percentage they allow or if it's just an arbitrary figure that they come to. But that's why I wouldn't suggest we lower our fees at this point. Also because we've seen a slight downturn in commercial work. Okay, commercial work has taken a little bit of a slide from over the previous years.
So, Mr. Phillips, forgive my ignorance. When we run this surplus of $200,000, what happens to that surplus?
You tell me.
It's in the general
We,
fund.
we,
I don't know.
It goes
I
to
don't
our
see that.
surplus. It goes to our
Okay,
general.
okay, so it goes to the
surplus.
general
Right.
surplus.
It's got excess revenue of the town.
Okay.
that
It's in
the
goes
general
toward-
fund.
I didn't know if there was some specific allocation that it needed to be earmarked back to that department.
The fees, the operation of the town, the fees work the same as, say, a rec department or any other department that produces fees. Fees come in, we have budget. If there's any difference, it goes to the township surplus. The only difference with Mr. Phillips' department is we have to do our accounting of that department individually and adjust our fees according to the state regulations. And in the long run, we should be at a break even on that department.
Okay. Any other questions from Mr. Phillips?
We have one other line item.
We have another line item.
On G5, it's a small, it's $3,000 for filing cabinets.
It's on G5.
Right, under office furniture.
File cabinet.
A file cabinet.
File cabinets.
Oh, it's not there, though. There's nothing there.
It's about halfway down in the office.
Oh, yeah, construction code, 3,000.
Construction code 3000. If, just a general question, really, I guess to Mr. Davis at this time, if we're doing the implementation of the optical scanning, which ultimately is going to eliminate the need for filing cabinets, why would we be buying more if, in short order, maybe by year end, everything would be optically scanned?
Can I interject here for a second?
Okay.
Sure.
We were told this last year. We produce 5 full 5-drawer filing cabinets of files a year. We have boxes piled on top of filing cabinets that are actually unsafe because they're higher than some, they're taller than our employees.
Mm-hmm.
If these would fall, we'd have a problem. Now, I've been asking for filing cabinets the second year.
The point of fact is you're correct. We are going to be going
Right.
to the
Still.
computerized files. But in the meantime, we still have to deal with the files that we have. Aside from it being unsafe, it's totally inefficient when you have to look for a file.
Sure.
Because you're climbing a ladder, dragging down a file box, which are not light when they're packed, and to locate the necessary file that you need. It's the cost. I mean, unfortunately, it's the cost of doing business. We are not yet in the position to say we don't need file cabinets. We're almost there, but we're not there. And until such time as we are there, I feel that we need to provide the file cabinets because it's necessary. It's just not practical to conduct
So let
business
me,
the way we are.
let me ask a question, playing that out a little bit. At some point in the future, we're going to go to optical scanning. We'll have data where everybody can pick it out off the internet or
Right.
from their workstations here. Is there a resale market for filing cabinets later on where we get some of that back?
Or maybe, we've bought used cabinets before. So I can't, they have to get the used ones from someplace. So we probably can sell them back.
Okay.
Certainly, if they are no longer needed, we can include them in our auction,
Surplus.
and that's how we would dispose of any surplus material would be through an auction.
Okay.
If I may just offer one thought, I had a tour of the office today, and as you probably all know, there might be some issues in that building in terms of space, and these are very important documents that the township ought to have. And should there be any damage to the documents that are now in paper boxes, we would be
trouble.
paying in a long run to
Absolutely.
recoup that cost. And it is a safety issue. And again, I think the deputy mayor pointed out, we can sell these at auction, should we not need them, or perhaps the older ones, since these will be newer. And I suspect there'll always be a need for some file cabinets.
Any other, is that it then, Mr. Filiatro on capital? Anything else on construction code then? Nothing else? Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Good night.
Next department would be court. They begin on the bottom of page J23 in the operating.
J23.
There's one item in capital in G5. In our pecking order, court used to be outside cap. Therefore, that's why it's way down in the 23rd page here. They no longer are outside cap. They are inside cap under the new rules. They actually were brought in inside cap last year.
Okay.
So gentlemen, when you speak too, same rules apply. Just introduce yourselves in like 10 seconds or less, who you are, what your titles are, etc.
Let us start with recognizing we have the Honorable Judge Alan Kaplan with us, and Mr. Pondaco. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. All right, Mr. Pondaco, it's probably your show to start, is that fair to say?
That's
Or is it the judge?
No, Mr. Pandaca.
We all promise, Your Honor, to be on our best behavior. No summonses or fines tonight. Although I might need you next Tuesday.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so what page, I'm sorry?
J23.
J23,
J23.
the salaries begin, operating expenses are J24.
All right, so J23, municipal court. So why don't you perhaps, if you would, Mr. Pondaco, any general comments,
Well, the salaries are-
observations you'd like to mention?
The salaries are pretty much just contractual. Okay, we have the one line item on the bottom, which is the overtime. We did reduce that figure on Thursdays, we have the staff coming in on split sessions, bring the overtime rate down, and there is no more overtime for evening court on Thursdays.
That's terrific.
Unfortunately, we can't do that on Wednesday because we have a day session, and the staff needs to be there. So we brought that figure down as much as we could.
And Mr. Davis, this is, for Mr. Zernecki's benefit, this is a part of that discretionary amount that I believe we have left in,
Yes,
obviously, for required overtime.
I had met with Judge Kaplan and Mr. Pondaco on this issue, and as you can see, they worked very diligently on bringing down the figure. They understood the importance of maintaining as low an overtime budget as possible.
And we appreciate that.
And also, when we, for the record, Alan Kaplan, the municipal judge, what we also do is when we have the evening court session, and that's why we have some of the overtime for our staff, that accommodates the police schedule so that they are not brought in on overtime.
Right, that's
And their overtime is a much higher rate than our court staff's.
Mhm.
Wonderful.
Good point.
All right, so we on to J24 then? Is that right?
Yes.
Operating
I'd like to ask
expenses?
one question.
Yes, sir.
7%, was that just the raise? Contractual?
Are you talking about the actual...
Salaries.
Yeah, that's just, yes.
It's, there are people that are not at the maximum step, so the effect of the existing staff is the contractual pay raises, plus you have people that are going up in steps, and the steps in and of themselves in the contract are worth about 4%.
Benefits
Okay.
too, I guess.
Okay.
I think all the benefits are in one separate line item.
Oh, okay.
All right, so on J24, anything in particular that you'd like to point out, other than the fact that your operating budget is down by 5%?
Yeah, no more video,
So that's
no
a
more
good
video
thing.
conferencing. Huh?
We're still doing video conferencing.
We're doing it, we're just not paying for it.
Okay.
Right, paid for.
So who's paying for it?
Well, the capital item has already been paid for.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that's been a big cost saver because you don't have to have the police going back and forth to the jail.
Your Honor, I know that that revenue is up primarily, obviously, you and the administrator. Where does that get reflected, Mr. Filiatro?
General revenue of the township.
Do we, just for the benefit, I'm pretty certain the governing body is aware, and for the benefit of the general public, perhaps you two gentlemen can talk about the extraordinary increases in revenue that you have brought in, which, in the absence of, there's only two ways to raise revenue in town, and one of the ways is very undesirable. The way that you're doing it for people that break the law is certainly much more desirable. So to your credit, perhaps in particular the benefit of Mr. Walsh, who's still new, if you could maybe elaborate on some of the things you've done and the revenue you've raised, it's extraordinary.
Okay. Well, I think one of the things to clear up is it hasn't been a situation where the revenue was increased because the fines or penalties that were imposed were increased.
You could do that too, though. Throw the book at them, right?
Well, what we've done is we had a large amount of delinquencies because under the New Jersey court system, if a person does not have the financial means to pay their fines, you have to give them a time payment plan. And we've had, when I first took over, we had, I think it was 7 drawers, filing cabinet drawers full of time payments, which are down to about 3 drawers now. 2.5. So we had some long-term delinquencies that when we were able to, what happens is when they don't pay, it goes to what they call warrant stage, and then people get picked up, their registration is overdue, and they do a lookup on the computer in the state lookup, and there's a warrant form, so they pick them up in Somerset County or Lakewood or someplace like that, and then they bring them before me, and I question them why they haven't paid in 5 or 6 years. So we cracked down on that and ended the revolving door that a lot of them had, and not only did they pay up, or majority of them pay up, but also they seemed to know each other, and their friends started paying up, and we reduced our backlog. So that has been a big help. And the other thing I think we've also, as we try to move the cases in the court at a more efficient pace, what we do is we tend to process a lot more cases and get them to completion. So that increases the revenues too.
Sir, when did you take over as a judge?
July 1st, 2003.
And how much any estimate on what's still outstanding on delinquencies? Dollar amount to the township?
They're up in the 100,000s.
100,000, 200,000, 300,000? Let's not play with round numbers up that high, please.
I'd say around 500,000.
Now, some of those are people that are making payments at whatever they can afford. And some of them are, we have to find them first. They have to get picked up. We had one last week, it was 10 years. Hadn't made a payment in 10 years.
And there's no way, Your Honor, that we could, absent them getting picked up on a different violation, issue some warrant for them being behind if they're not on the payment plan?
Well, what we do is a warrant is issued, the Division of Motor Vehicles is notified, and their licenses are suspended. Other than that, it's a matter of finding them. Some of them, leave the state, you're not going to get them. And some of them, they come in, and sometimes they get picked up, and sometimes they get released from the jail at the county before they come before me, like over the weekend or something. Only to, on a promise to pay until, I don't tend to do that, but.
Also, some of these people are suspended for a period of 10 years, so they're not going to be really that concerned with it until their 10 years are up.
Do you have another question, Mr. Walsh?
So when I look at the numbers from the revenue from the courts, it's a little bit skewed because of all the collections you've done, taking it down from 7 filing cabinets to 2.5?
Well, I think in maybe the first year or so, that might have skewed the numbers a little bit higher because of the crackdown. But I think also what happens is when there's 60 or 70 people in the courtroom, and one of the earlier people to come before me who has been delinquent in making their payments realizes that the door is shut and they get taken out in handcuffs. All the other people don't ask for payment plans, they just want to finish it that night, which cuts down on the staff's workload.
Okay, thank you.
Double and win.
Okay. Did you have something you wanted to add, Mr. Filiaggio? It looked like you, okay.
The incentive plan.
Under employee benefits, it shows as the line item, but I guess that's not that's no longer in this particular budget, is that Mr. Philander? It says employee health benefits.
No.
It's
since-
pulled out and elsewhere.
Yeah, since the general health insurance appropriation has been moved outside cap and court has been moved inside the cap, we left the whole
Okay.
health benefits outside cap, yeah.
So it's not showing up there.
It's not showing up there.
It's showing up in the
Last year
total.
that it was in there.
Okay. Do you want to talk about the public defender? Go on to that next?
That's, no.
Oh,
Public
that's
defender's
not.
in
That's
this
not
budget.
the court's responsibility, actually.
Okay. Boy, didn't know that. Is there anything else on operating then that we need to talk about? Or just into capital if there is any?
There is
There's capital?
one capital item, I think, that Mr. Sternetsky wants to address.
Okay.
Page
Which page is that on, Mr. Zanicki?
That's on page G5. Top of the page, under improvements to police and court, the item that says relocate violations window, $10,000.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I had the pleasure of meeting the staff at the court this morning. Got a tour with Mr. Bundaco and really got a sense of what he wants to accomplish there in terms of customer service, safety, and efficiency. And we had a long conversation about the appropriations that were made last year under the capital improvement program. I believe it was approximately $20,000 that was requested. And also this request for $10,000. I'm going to ask him to speak about his goals for that department in terms of the layout of the office and some of the customer service and safety issues there. But in terms of that number, we're going to revisit that because my preference at this point, and he agrees, is that we really ought to have a, once he explains where he's going, comment will make sense. I'd like to have a floor plan for that entire office to take growth into account instead of making improvements that we might have to tear out down the road. And I think what I'd like to come back to council with is a plan to maybe get some professional consulting help to help us think through an efficient layout for that office. But I'll turn it over to you, Dominic, to talk about
Sure.
some of
Thank you,
the
Tom.
safety and customer service issues.
Thank you. Well, we've been in that building now about 16 years. There's a lot of wasted space on that area, that side of the building being the court. The police department is very tight on their end. We have some space that we are able to give them. 2 back offices, okay? Chief and I have already talked about that. He definitely has an interest in it. He needs it.
Great.
Our problem is the public defender's office, the prosecutor's office is located towards the back of the building. You need to almost walk through our office to get there. It's definitely a concern. You have the public going back there. Right after 9/11, we were all so paranoid. Whatever you saw just went out the back door and a cop was called. You really cannot have the public back there. It was very poor planning when this building went up 16 years ago, okay? There's a huge corridor that goes through the center of the building. It's got to be about 10 or 12 feet wide. It's a waste of space. Our office is shaped, it's rectangular shaped. It's almost like a bowling alley. You have this wasted space. You have a violations window at the end of this rectangle facing one desk. It does not face the staff. There are times where the customers are standing there, and we do have a bell there because we have to have that by AOC procedures. They're standing there, and sometimes if we're involved with something, we don't know that they're there. The idea of this is to provide better customer service for the people. This window can only accommodate one, you can only help one person at a time. I have the staff, I don't have a window to work with these people. There is one hole in the middle of this window. You could only work with one person at a time. If you have to go assist someone else, you have to walk around and go outside and help them. There's been times where I've taken complaints where you need privacy. You need to deal with these people in private. There are issues that are a little bit delicate. You cannot sit there in public and talk with these people about this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I'm not getting this right.
Okay.
And it's just an issue that I feel very strongly about. And the manager and I went over it. He understood. He saw what my plan is. The idea is all it's all customer service.
Well, I think we all
And
appreciate
safety.
your
It's-
commentary about customers. That's important.
it's not efficient the way it's
All
run.
right, so the plan is you're going to work with the manager to
Yes.
come up with an overall
Yes.
redesign of the layout of the space, get someone involved that can give us some external guidance on this and come back to us with a proposal for something?
Well, I'd like to get a quote for what it would cost to get a professional and include that in the budget. And then at least it'll allow us to phase improvements over time. And I know some money was set aside last year. But really,
Seems reasonable.
just to give you a sense of what I witnessed, if someone has something, and I stood there for some time watching customers walk in, the people had to kind of speak in a loud sort of a voice, perhaps something of a personal nature, and not only was it embarrassing to the customer, but the rest of the staff had to hear it too, because everyone was at a higher pitch trying to communicate.
Does everyone, I mean, does this make sense? Everybody's on board with this?
Again, taking it to a much higher level. Last year, we talked about having this consulting engagement put together for all the buildings at one time for economies of scale savings. In other words, looking at the library, looking at the courthouse, looking at the municipal building. So we actually set aside monies, and you're right about that, Tom, to have some studies done. I would hate to do it piecemeal. We have somebody come in to look at the court, and then 5 months later, somebody come in to look at the library, and then another 5 months later, have somebody hired to look at this town hall. And if we're going to do it, let's do it all in one shot.
Comment?
I have not even, I have to learn about those issues as well.
Right.
So give me a chance to do that,
Okay.
and I will.
And we know about the engineering building, obviously.
Tom, you've had 36 hours.
So I guess what I'm saying is I'm okay with that, but I'm not sure if I'm okay with pulling it out piecemeal from the rest of it.
I appreciate that. I'm not sure that at the scale that this project's at, there's many economies to be realized. So I think this is something we could perhaps knock out, and even.
Well, here's another point. When we had talked with the chief about this, not during this budget process, but at other times, we had talked about the court actually going into the new building, which would give the police all the space in that courthouse down there. So if you're going to come out with plans, understand that what you said earlier is right on. We can come out with these new plans and put rooms together, and all of a sudden, a year later, we're blowing out what we just did because we had the police having the whole building, and they're going to be in the new building.
Mr.
Well, you
Fiasco,
follow what I'm saying.
What did we set aside last year for Mr. Zanecki's benefit and our recollection? We set aside a certain amount of monies last year to do a sort of global physical plant assessment, and I know we haven't expended any of it, I don't think.
I don't recall actually setting aside any money in the budget.
You don't recall that we did set aside?
I recall a discussion, but I don't recall any special line item or putting a special money in to set aside for that purpose.
Okay.
I don't recall a dollar amount that, I don't think we got to that point.
I think we
Do you recall, Mr. David?
I recollect that we set, there was a budgetary item for architectural services for a new building.
Yes.
Which we're in that process, as a matter of fact. I spoke to Tom about that today, and we're going to be meeting on that to go through that, and then shortly thereafter we'll be presenting it to the council. But I remember the figure of 500,000.
Right, as we just said.
I mean, that goes back, I think, 2 years.
2 years,
on that.
I think it is.
That was never
was a capital item.
finalized and authorized by ordinance stuff.
It was not.
It was
Okay.
not.
All right.
This is just, I don't think we would really realize many efficiencies here, because we're not talking about designing mechanical systems. We're really just talking
Floor
about
space.
looking at one or two walls and then
All right.
thinking about proper square footage.
Why don't we-
By the way, when I talk about walls, that always comes back to mind.
General consensus, we're okay with giving Mr. Zanecki authorization to go out and get some estimates on a floor design and reallocate the space. Does that sound
Yes,
acceptable?
because I don't think it's realistic to make them wait
No.
for an overall
I
project.
think you're
No, you're talking 3 years down the road. If
okay.
you decide
Manager
tomorrow.
and you will work this out. You'll get your conceptuals and
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand where you guys are coming from. It makes sense, okay? This is the first time I've heard of it, that we were even considered to go into a new building.
I mean, the township is considering all of the options of a
Right.
better way to do a physical plant. One of the options could be a new building, could be rehab this building, who knows? Anything else, Your Honor?
No, I think we've covered it all.
Okay. Anything else for Mr. Pindaco in the courts?
No.
We're good. Thank you both,
Okay,
gentlemen.
Thank you.
Hope we don't see you in the court.
What's next, Mr. Filiatro?
Public
Can
Works
I-
is next.
Public Works is next.
Page J13, it begins.
We're going to be long with this, so if you want to take a break.
Hey, why don't we take a 5-minute recess, and we'll come,
no.
we'll come. All right, we'll get back in session.
Where's Frank?
He's coming back in. He had to go to the restroom for a minute.
Mr.
All right, what
Mayor-
page are we on?
Mr. Mayor, we have a suggestion to make, and I think will make this whole process efficient.
Just say no?
We propose
Just say yes?
to go through all the operating expenses of DPW,
Okay.
and then we'll go through all the operating expenses of engineering, because the capital items for both departments are intermingled, so we'll do them together after going through the operating. So with that, we'll start with DPW. It begins on the bottom page J13.
All right, J13. Everybody, we're going to go to
There are
J13.
several departments, so we'll go through one at a time.
Okay, Ms. Bernier, do you want to introduce anyone from your team and obviously introduce yourself? Any opening comments or remarks,
Yes.
please?
Mildred Bernier, Director of Public Works, Recycling Coordinator. To my right is Frank Serbone, Chief Mechanic in charge of vehicle maintenance.
Oh, Frank?
To my left is Gina Dix, one of the secretaries for Public Works.
Good evening. Thanks for being here. I'm going to do something that often will get me in trouble by recognizing or singling someone out in particular, but I want to publicly acknowledge the Chief Mechanic, Mr. Serbone, was at the First Aid Squad dinner for the Howell First Aid Squad on Saturday night, and they raved about, in particular, his work and that of the garage with respect to maintaining our vehicles, in particular working on the ambulances, and invariably, no matter where we go or who we talk to collectively, as it relates to the garage that Mr. Serbone is responsible for, we always get just absolutely outstanding commentary, and you're a real tribute to the township and your department, and I know I speak for everybody up here. We're indebted for everything you do, how you stretch out the vehicles, how you save the taxpayers' money, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr.
So,
Mayor.
thank you.
Thank you.
That's not to suggest that you are not worthy of similar commendation. All right, so we're on J13, down at the bottom.
J13 at the bottom is the salary wage, and it continues on 14.
16% increase.
So this is a 14, or almost a 15% composite increase in salaries and wages.
How many extra people was that?
You do have a separate sheet up on the dais. There are some new positions that Mrs. Bernier has requested. And there is a list of all the new positions that have been requested in all the departments.
So can we,
I believe we can talk about it. It's 2 laborers.
so it's 2 laborers for Public Works at 69,564?
Correct.
And that doesn't obviously include benefits.
That does not include benefits.
That's someplace else.
Yes.
What's the pleasure of the council? Do we want to talk about any of these new positions, department by department,
I
in
think we
total?
agreed earlier not to do it department by department.
Yeah.
To wait till you.
Okay.
There's
What number
also
Cynthia
an additional mechanic in the list.
So it's,
I don't believe that is on vehicle maintenance.
Vehicle maintenance, but it's
Department.
overall part of the,
It's not
of
in
this
the-
group.
It's not in the public works department.
okay.
When we address this, Mayor, though, we're not going to be getting any input from the department at all about new hires?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know that that's true. I think what we'll probably have to do is rely on the manager and the CFO to get into it strikes me that I would suspect you've made your recommendations and you've outlined your business plan to the manager. I'm certain there's got to be some documentation somewhere that substantiates the reason why and the cost justification for these additions. And, we could certainly have them comment on it when we get to it, or we can have the manager and the CFO, outline for us as well what those justifications were. If you want to do it with the department head here, I'm fine with that, too. I don't really have a preference.
I would personally rather do it with the department head here. I'd like to hear her input.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an objection to that.
I think her input's very important. She's the one saying that she needs more people. I'd like to hear her reasonings why.
If I may make a suggestion to it, since it's probably going to fall upon us on this side when we get to the final discussion. I have not discussed this with the department since the November hearings with the manager, and certainly, you know, it would help me to have a refresher too and listen to, you know, her points over why she needs new personnel.
The only comment I will make is that for many of these departments, we just had this huge efficiency audit done, and we still haven't discussed about it as a council. And a lot of the commentary that we'll be hearing tonight may already be covered in the audit. So some of the things we want to talk about, which is all the operation and capital stuff, are not talked about, where this does. That's why I think last meeting when it was brought up by Cynthia, that maybe we should hold off on the engaging of conversations about personnel till the end. I kind of went along with it. I do understand Bobby's point, and we do want to have the input of department heads, but this says a lot, like what you're looking at right now.
Mr. Malabi, do you want to talk about it now and get into it, or do you want to wait?
I think,
I don't have a preference, Mayor.
I'm sorry, Mr. Zernecki, why don't you tell us your thoughts?
I'm sorry, it's council's pleasure, but I think it's good to hear what's on the mind of the department head, but I don't think necessarily we need to get into an in-depth conversation about it. But I think it's important for the department heads to explain what they perceive their needs to be.
As a mission?
And also realize that, you know, Mildred took me through a tour of the department, and it's a fairly large place. There was only so much I could digest in a day, so this is as educational for me and for my benefit to hear this again, although I did hear it today.
So why don't we proceed then? You want to, since we're starting with salaries and wages, it looks like there's 2 laborers, and the mechanic, is there anyone else in new positions?
Well, Jeff said the mechanic is not part of the DPW budget, though,
It's under
right?
vehicle maintenance.
It's under
separate-
vehicle maintenance, with
separate.
which,
Still under Millie's department.
so it
It's not
falls
in
under.
this regular employee salary and wage line, though. Is that right, Jeff?
No, it's not.
It doesn't, it appears somewhere else.
Right.
But since you're the department head with responsibility for it,
I
and
mean,
was that,
if you want to recap, there are 2 labor positions in Public Works. You go down 2 departments in vehicle maintenance, there's a request for a mechanic. You want to discuss them all at once. That's what the requests are.
Millie, why don't you talk about the 2 laborers, where they would go and what the need is for them?
Okay, with
go right ahead.
the last several years, I have compiled information, statistics on the Department of Public Works. At present, I have a total of 27 work crew people. Does not include the 6 mechanics, which brings us up to 33, nor does it include buildings and grounds personnel. Over the years, the department, within the last 10 years, through attrition, through people leaving, we have never gained anybody. All we've done is replaced. In the meantime, the town has grown and grown and grown. Since 1988, we had a population here in the township of 32,000. Now we're up to 52,000. With 27 people, to provide the services that are required by the Department of Public Works is almost a task to behold. When we have major storms, we have to call in outside people because we cannot handle the calls and the areas that we have to cover. Not only through snow plowing, through leaf and brush pickup, through drainage projects, through anything that needs to be done in Public Works. We have never, as long as I've been there, added on. We've only replaced, and it seems that every year we just keep going back and back and back, and we're not going forward. We're not keeping up. The department is not keeping up with the growth of the township and the requests that are come into this department. Every day at 7 o'clock in the morning, we sit down with the foreman in the lunchroom. We give out job assignments, and basically, if a request comes down, now you're pulling this guy to go over here, and we just don't. Bottom line, I don't have enough people, and I know it's a concern because of budget constraints and the cap and salary and wages and medical benefits. Believe me, I'm well aware of it. But to provide what we need to do, it's almost impossible. Met with 27 people. I compiled information and did a study last year and the year before and this year of the surrounding towns. And I chose Wall Township, which is one of the biggest ones, which is half of Howell with 32 square miles, and Bricktown, I believe Jackson, Manalapan, and Marlboro. And comparatively to Howell, their staff is almost double of what we have here to take care of less than what we have to do. And every year I come up in front of council, whether it's this mayor and council or councils before, okay, we need people. We need people. That's bottom line. I mean, I can put together as many reports and show the need, but you know what? Ultimate decision is mayor and council. You know, our thing is for customer service. Well, if you don't have the goods, you can't provide the service. If you go into a grocery store and you got a cart full of food and you go up to the cashier, there's no cashier, you can't get checked out. We need people.
Well,
We
if
need
there were,
people.
I'm sorry, if there were two additional employees, what area of service do you think, in your mind, you'd like to see the greatest focus on? Road improvements?
Road department, that's where they're needed. We may be able to take on take on a little bit more, but not much more. I mean, you're juggling these people, you know, the employees on a day-to-day basis. You have to figure in those that are on vacation, those that call out sick, those that are on workers' comp. It shortens your staff. I mean, at any given time, when I come in the morning, I'm hoping that nobody calls out. Because if they do, now you're juggling a schedule.
So when you say road, that includes plowing, leaf collection?
Everything. Curbside pickup, drainage, installation of pipe. Last year, I'll give you a prime example, I'll keep it short. We were asked to do a project for a sewer project of 2,000 linear feet to run sewer line, which took 10 employees, 4 weeks. Well, whatever projects I had that we needed to do, you know, everything gets put aside. And what we do on a day-to-day basis is we juggle people.
And robbing Peter to pay Paul.
It's
Hey,
you
why
know,
don't
your hands basically are tied.
you talk a little bit about the mechanic?
Okay. Our mechanical staff, which Frank and you know, our 5 other mechanics, these mechanics, and I'm going to say are the best of the best. In the last 4 or 5 or 6 years, we undertook doing in-house emission inspections, emission repairs, rather than going on the outside, which would have cost this township a fortune having this work done. We do welding. If we had a paint bay, they'd probably be painting also. We have a total of 289 pieces of equipment, which involves all your cars through all your departments, all the big equipment, the police cars. Every year it just keeps growing and growing and growing. Another mechanic is truly needed out in that garage. Also, I asked for a parts and inventory person, Bing, and I know Mr. Davis a couple of years ago had mentioned this and thought and great idea. I wish we could implement this only because of that. Number one, we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of parts in our inventory parts room, all on inventory. And the thing is, when the guys have to go in for parts, at least you'd have somebody there. They don't have to go into the parts room. This person would only take care of our parts and inventory room. This person would also run for parts on the outside. Seabreeze Ford, Larson Ford, go up to North Jersey to pick up plow parts or whatever. Now we need to send a mechanic. Now you got to take that mechanic away from what he's doing to go to run for parts, which to me it's not cost effective and it's not productive. So I've been asking for a parts and inventory person for about 3 years. I know, you know, I employ the mayor and councils. I know you have a lot of budgets to listen to. I know that, you know, departments are asking for personnel. We are the second largest department outside of the police department. And the same roads that they have to patrol, these are the same roads that we have to maintain. And it's getting to be a job in itself because I don't have the people. I'm not asking for 50, which I wished I had, but at least two would help us out. It's 2 more people, it's 4 pairs of hands. It's getting to be quite a struggle to keep up with what we're doing there. And God only knows, between myself and the road foreman and the chief mechanic, you know, he has 5 mechanics out there. You have 2 call out sick, now you're down to 3. I mean, it's a never-ending thing. Never ending. There's no stop to it. It's not getting better. It's not getting better because of all that's put on to us. I mean, we're doing it, but it takes a lot more than it did, say, 5 years ago.
Any questions on, obviously we'll have a more in-depth discussion, but at least we now have your explanation, which is helpful, and your rationale.
I did just want to make one comment myself, and looking back at '05, and that there was a labor trainee that was part of the reduction in force, the layoff. So they did lose a person last year in that process. Therefore, you know, this request really is one more than what they had prior to that.
Well, actually, Jeff, we lost 2 because we lost 2 labor trainees.
Wow, I see one.
One out in the recycling center.
But I'm just looking at public
Yeah.
works.
Oh, okay, yeah, we did lose a labor trainee. Public Works.
All right, is there anything else on the proposed positions?
No, it's good to get her
Okay.
feedback. Just to give you 10 seconds on it. You audit it, talked about missions of the DPW, and then in teams of people to fulfill those missions. And in fact, maybe having people cross-trained so that when different seasons come around, they can take from Peter to handle the fall situations in different seasons, too. So, again, we do need to talk about this audit at a much higher level, but I'm glad to get Millie's feedback.
Hey, one of the things I want to do when we're done with tonight's budget is schedule a special session for the council to go through this and talk with Mr. Zanecki about disseminating it to the department heads, et cetera. So, all right, so what, you want to go back into J13? So the explanation is this contemplates, at this point in time, those positions being included in the budget.
It would actually be, the inventory person was part of the DPW budget. Is that factored in also, Mel?
No, that's vehicle maintenance.
It's vehicle.
Vehicle maintenance,
Yes.
okay.
Okay.
So you have 2 laborers then in the DPW budget.
Okay, and you'll see a bit of, we had gotten a person back in November that was transferred from another department that
Okay.
shows the increase in salary also.
Okay.
All right, so if we go to the top of J14, looks like road safety is up. What is included in road safety? These are speed humps? I only said it, Bill, because I saw you were here.
To my knowledge. If you want to include it, you got to up that.
No, they've already been included. Did you ever see the end of the, just to digress for a minute, the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark? Indiana Jones
Right,
spent
into the-
half his lifetime trying to find this
Yes.
ark, and then they kind of just put it in a big box somewhere and away it goes. That's where the speed humps are. Bill just hasn't found them yet.
I told you, Bill.
He knows I'm only teasing him. All right, but what kind of road safety does this contemplate? This is on J14, the second item.
These are, if I can go by the description, safety vests, the barricades, cones, signs, safety glasses and earplugs for the employees.
And the hard hats that have to be fitted with inserts and special, shields and stuff. Last year in this account, I had spent $2,297.
25 a year.
Oh, I took it from the last one. Okay, listen. And Mayor, I'd just like to say something to Mayor and Council. What you're going to see here are basically the same line items This budget is based on what we've spent in the past, last year, and also taking into consideration the increases in cost of similar materials for this year. We get catalogs, we do quotes, we call as many vendors as we can, no matter what project we're working on, and we don't control what they charge us. We go for the best, but yet for what we need. This budget is by no means, for lack of better words, padded.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Are you expecting a huge snowstorm or something coming this way?
500% increase in the salt and sand.
That anticipates the new salt
That's the
shed.
dome.
I thought that was on
No, not the
platform.
cost of the new dome, the filling of the
The
new
filling
dome.
of
That's
the new
what it
dome.
would cost to
So
fill
you
it.
have to feel, you want to feel it too? You didn't say that.
You do need the salt.
Not going to be a little skating rink?
But-
Is that what you want, a little roller skating rink
But
inside?
I do have a question on this.
Are you on the next, are you on another line item?
It's
Yeah, we're not worried about...
J14.
He
Yeah,
saw
we
the
moved it.
300,000 versus 2,000, jump right to that.
Oh, three.
So you spent 54,000 last year on salt and sand, and you expect to spend 300,000.
Actually, we did, it's more like double that for salt. We did tap the emergency fund for salt. So she spent well over $100,000.
Yeah, but this year we haven't had really much.
No,
we
it has
haven't-
not been
Don't jinx
bad
us.
this year. The problem is we can't touch the emergency
March is still
fund
here?
to buy the initial stock. And if you're going to build a new salt dome,
Right.
you need to buy that initial inventory to be in there and ready for storms. After that, then our basic budget works.
So for the next 5
And
years,
we
we're
can
gonna have
touch
to
the
buy it.
emergency fund for a bad year, but we
Well, is
you
there
can't
a
hit the emergency
lifespan
fund for the
on-
initial
on
supply.
A share lifespan on salt? I mean, it's going to become, I mean, right now, at $300,000 to fill that dome, it's going to probably take you a couple of years to use it up, I would think.
5.
No, not really. The present dome that we have now can hold 1,500 ton, which is not adequate for us.
So what do you do when the current one is not adequate? So when you deplete it, where are you going to
Well,
get
what
the
happens
the
is
makeup?
that as we're using it, of course, we're getting more salt in delivered.
I realize that, but you're still not using $300,000 worth on any given year. So the $300,000 to fill that dome with sand and salt should last you, I would think, at least a couple of years, no?
Yeah, that's a $200,000 increase if they did spend 100. This shows
They're saying they spent
54.
200.
Oh, they spent 200?
He said 100 plus 100 in emergency money, he said.
Yeah, and I don't have the exact numbers with me. I can look up, see how much was spent on salt in the emergency fund.
So it really isn't a 500% increase.
Well, yeah, in actuality, it's not.
It's not because
It's-
So they
it's not
spent more
because-
like 200, so you're looking for an extra 100,000 to stock that dome.
Okay, and plus the price of the salt has gone up $2 a ton, $12 a ton. $12
Well,
a ton.
just as a point of fact, I remember either, not last year, but the year before, there was a shortage.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
they
people
were-
in towns were fighting for
They
it.
were holding the barges off the coast
Yes.
to drive the price up.
to drive the price up during storms.
And
They
I
would
can-
never do that in America.
Oh, yeah.
and I
There's
can
one
recall-
supplier in New Jersey.
20,000
Yeah, he
ton.
would never do that.
I can recall this happening to us 2 years ago, not
It
only
was
for
2 years
town,
ago,
all the
okay.
towns, and we were waiting for the vendor to deliver salt. And I had gotten a call from another entity in the township, and they said, well, wait, we can't wait for the salt, because we also supplied Board of Education, who in turn will buy us salt, 100 ton, 200 ton, whatever, okay? They went out and paid $75 a ton.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
And called me up and wanted to know if I said, what? I said, no, you know what? We're gonna middle through this wait, and we got our delivery the next day. And I called that person back and I said, had you waited, you would have saved yourself at least $40 a ton.
Now they want to know why we fight their budget.
I mean, this is reality.
So the explanation is, it's going to cost an extra 100 to fill this new dome. I wish I had known that. I'm glad I voted no on the dome, because I just can't see us. It's me personally. Don't take it
No,
personal.
but
You do a wonderful
This
job.
dome is gonna hold almost 5,000 ton of salt.
But what is, but,
You're buying
tell me
Believe
again what
five
that
storms-
will,
That 5 storms, that salt's gone.
I don't know.
In that
I
one
just-
dome.
Oh, yeah.
There was a reason why we did the dome, though. It wasn't that there wasn't a reason. We do got to provide service
It
to
was
64
relayed
miles
that there
of-
was an environmental concern.
Right.
And there still is.
And that was the reason why.
Things in perspective, what is one load of salt cost?
12, she just said $12 a ton. Oh.
That's what it went up.
What did we just,
Use the mic,
we
too.
usually,
We do 1,000 ton.
Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, we do 1,000 ton on a purchase order at 46 and change a ton, so it's like $46,000.
Right.
Hmm.
And that'll be one storm.
That's one storm.
And there have been, yeah, okay, well, this year's a light year.
Do we have to fill this whole dome in one shot?
No. Did we do it half? But we still have, you know, some in the old dome.
Yeah, but
How many
if it's-
tons will that dome hold?
If it's,
The
well,
new one close to 5,000 ton.
But at $300,000 expended for salt and sand at $12 a ton, we're buying 25,000
It's
tons.
not 12 a ton, it's 46 a ton.
I thought you said it went up by
It's a
12.
different-
Oh,
yes,
I
it
was
went
gonna
up
say,
by
'cause that's like
12.
let me just go
25,000
back.
tons.
If it's $46,000 to salt the town for every snowstorm,
Right.
are we right now, are the domes filled right now?
We just have the one up, the old one.
And and how many storms will that get? I don't know how much that dome holds. So it holds one storm's worth
One,
of,
just
of,
1.5, because it's 1,500 tons, is that correct?
1,500 tons.
And the one we're building is 5,000 tons.
so we have enough to get through another storm, so we got
would have a storm
$46,000
tomorrow
in.
night. This probably, depending on the severity, get us through one storm. You can't predict.
Yeah, you can't, yeah, no
You
one,
just
Reduce
can't.
that
And I
number
don't
to
want- I don't want us to be
225,000.
caught
Reduce that
well,
number
I mean,
to
but you gotta
225,000.
keep,
down.
but I think though, I mean, if we didn't have the new dome, we would be going through what we continue to go through now. I
If
don't,
we didn't have the new dome, okay, number
225.
one, we have the
45,000 tons.
stormwater regs.
Mm-hmm.
Cannot have anything on the ground.
All right, okay.
Everything has to be
Correct.
stored. And if you take a look at what we have down there right now, some of it is coming out of the front of the dome.
Why did they do that?
Not on the air.
You know,
Billy,
I'm just
Billy,
saying
not
like
on
it
the air.
is.
But no, what are they doing?
We're recording.
I happen to,
Saying, you know,
I mean, look, the only point I'm
okay,
gonna,
Bruce, we're all right. I'm just saying, you can't have anything stored on the ground.
I would tend to agree that do we really need to fill this entire dome at once? In another couple of months, it's not gonna snow again until next year. Now, it could snow 5 more times between now and April 1st for all we know. But if it did, this wouldn't help us either. So I don't know that it helps us to have a nice, big, filled, brand-new salt dome
Well, wait a
in
second,
June.
when, just because, when is it intended to be filled?
We just, Bill and I were going over the specs this morning. I mean, we have to put it up yet.
Yeah, I mean, it
Right,
hasn't
so it's
even
not
built
this
yet.
year, right.
So,
Oh, no,
exactly.
it'll go up this year.
I
But
mean, it's
it'll
not for
go
this
up
year's
this year
snow.
in the
Not
summer.
for this year's snow.
It is not unheard of to need salt in November and
Oh, yeah,
December.
absolutely. We did
Oh,
this
sure.
past season.
I think what Millie's stating is the ideal, because there are inherent inefficiencies in filling up a dome should you have one, even in terms of purchasing and bulk deliveries and things like that. There might be efficiencies to realize should you fill this up, and I think what she's stating is the ideal. But I think as a practical matter, by the time the building gets built, and we get a better sense of how this winter has progressed, we'll be in a better position to know
Right.
exactly what we need to put in there. So I'm not certain that this figure is what we need to
Accurate.
guarantee
All right.
salting and sanding of roads, but I think it states an ideal.
So can you guys maybe take this one particular item offline and try and come up with something along what Mr. Walsh identified as, we don't have to fill the entire thing, maybe we fill a piece of it. Let's get a dent in it.
Put a
But-
little less salt on that steak.
Well, I think you can go by historical experiences, too, that what Tom just brought up, in November, December, there may be 1 or 2 salting experiences as an average every year. In the month of March, there might be 2 or 3, so do what you might want to have for this 2006 budget based on what you think is going to be the typical experiences remaining for the year.
And then, Mayor,
Okay.
one quick comment on the salt dome. The new stormwater regulations are going to require us to have, we aren't not going to be able to store any salt out. So
I'm
we have to-
completely aware of it. I just don't know that we needed one as big as we got it, but that's irrelevant. That's just, we
Two
all have
little
our opinions.
questions?
Well, it makes it more efficient for the loading and unloading of all the salt trucks,
You
too.
had something else, Ms. Walsh?
Just 2 little questions. Is it cheaper to buy it in more bulk?
That's what I want to know.
No, because we're under county go-up.
Okay. Is there a cheaper time of the year to buy it, or it's the same answer?
Same answer in the county co-op. That's the price that they give. Whether
Okay.
it's February, whether it's June.
A lot of things you buy in the off-season is cheaper.
Yeah.
I was just asking.
Under county co-op, they've gone and they've bid a fixed price for the year.
Okay.
Or you've got street and building signs, there's obviously an increase, we've all gotten an increase in the requests for signs from residents, from stop signs to speeding signs, parking signs. We're inundated with requests from customers for
passed up road
signs.
paint.
Is that what this contemplates?
Yes, it does. I had asked for, and I would like mayor and council to reconsider this figure. Again, today, I received another packet. We get a lot from traffic safety. They're going out throughout the township. Today, I got a packet from Moore's Landing for probably 50 no parking signs with the ordinance number. I mean, between the signs and the post. And what we do is, when we get something like this down, when I go to order the sign material, right on the purchase order, I will put for which development, for which area this pertains to, so that, you know, when it comes up to...
Well, you just aroused a red flag in my head again. Moore's Landing is a private homeowners association, so although we agreed to mediate their problem that they had, if these are private roads, they should be paying for the signs.
Yeah, but we
might order it for them, but they should be paying for it. So I
but
need
we
to
enacted
know.
the ordinance.
There's an
That's an
ordinance.
ordinance, though.
An ordinance was passed for no parking signs.
Well,
But
an ordinance
despite
was
whether
passed
they-
that said no parking.
That doesn't mean that
Parking,
we.
But you did, well, this all came down from traffic safety.
Yeah, and that's not
That's
their
not to say
fault
where
either.
the purchasing
Right.
responsibility lies. That's what I'm getting at. If this is a private homeowners association, they pay for their own signs. If these roads are private, that doesn't mean that, what I'm trying to say is passing of the ordinance and the law does not give the responsibility of purchasing what belongs to them to us.
Was the
We shouldn't be
association
regulating that,
recently...
which is not ours.
Well, that's the whole argument I had 4 or 5 months ago when I first came in front of us. We just mediated for them.
Was the area put into Title 39 where the township now patrols those roads, but initially the township didn't?
That
And
came
not
up actually
patrol.
with, I'm not sure.
That's not, that wasn't
I
clarified.
believe that it is our responsibility to patrol the roads and enforce the law. However,
Not necessarily.
costs, I mean, if somebody is because for the same reason as someone was speeding on one of those roads, they don't patrol themselves with respect to a homeowner association member flagging somebody down. However, that I agree with the deputy mayor that when it comes to the cost of the signs, that should be an expense that they bear. So in any of these private roads, we have a responsibility to set the law, we have a responsibility to enforce the law, but if somebody wants to put the signs up on a private road,
Right.
I think that expense gets passed back on to that association.
Just as an exact relative comment, we replace signs all the time in Boynton Woods, and we pay for it. If they get,
How old
There
is the
is,
association?
there is a dichotomy here between, let's say, Point Woods and
Moore's Landing.
Moore's Landing, in that there's a condo agreement with that. I think in Moore's Landing, since they predate the condo law and everything, we have agreed to provide much of the municipal services on their behalf, road maintenance and street lighting and snow plowing and everything,
Well, I would
rather
s-
than reimburse them for it.
I think,
I would like to know that for a fact, because
Well-
again, we're setting a dangerous precedent with every other homeowners association in Howell Township, and there's many.
I was just talking to Mr. Nunziato. He said, give him the opportunity to recheck it tomorrow.
I think,
Okay.
yeah.
Did you want to add something as well, Mrs. Janet?
No, I think we need to recheck.
Okay,
before
so you guys will,
we
I mean, that's
go
just
down
one
this road.
scenario. That's,
No.
well, it's a good example, because if it's 50 signs.
You didn't know what you were doing when you did that.
No, that's got to be a lot of money.
No,
Well, 50 signs still isn't going to be that much, but it's just the
but it
principle.
is. But because the
I mean,
posts,
right.
let's say 50 posts, they're $12 a piece.
Right, well, we're not, what I'm getting at is we're not talking
Yeah,
hundreds
you
of
know what I'm
thousands of
saying?
dollars, but just the principle of who should be responsible for what.
All right,
Well,
so
you know,
were you trying to make the
this-
point that you think that this should be restored to what you requested at 20
Yes.
rather than 14?
Yes.
All right.
And not only because of the sign blanks and the sign posts, but the sign material itself, the rolls of material
Mm-hmm.
itself are $400 a roll.
All right, Mr. Zanetti, could you maybe make a note on that one, that perhaps when we're all finished, you can bring that one back up to us after we get through the whole budget? I think in fairness, what we've attempted to do is not really reinstate anything until we get to the entire budget. because there may be things we add back in, there may be things we may take out. We want to digest the totality of the impact.
So
The next
noted.
is this I'm sorry.
So just a point, it wouldn't be, if there were an adjustment, though, it wouldn't be reflected in the expense side, it would be reflected in the revenue side, under the scenario
Well,
that's
that's
spelled
right.
out.
That's exactly
Right.
right. Right, cost neutral. What is what's the communication MR?
Maintenance and repair,
Communication.
radios.
So that's a radio system.
yes.
Is it being
And
replaced
weather,
or something?
We also subscribe to the
National Weather Service.
which is $1,000 a year.
Okay.
What's this books and publications, $10,000, it's never been expenditure over?
Books and publications.
There was a capital request made
Oh, yeah.
for new repair manuals. It does not fall into the realm of a capital item, so I moved it over into operating.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
When you say manuals,
on
is
the-
that actual manuals, or are they all digital nowadays?
No, sir, if I may, it's a DVD.
Okay.
Okay.
But many DVDs, I'm assuming.
Uh,
Or is that licensing on one DVD that covers everything?
I believe it's 2.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. Anything else under the Public Works? We appreciate your,
You may
Comments on-
continue on to recycling.
yeah, why don't we go to recycling?
Not much there to talk about. Salaries down,
Overtime was, went way down.
overtime
Yeah, when
down.
we talk about recycling, this does or does not, this includes the center, obviously.
Yes.
Does not include disposal fees.
No.
Does not include disposal
Solid
fees.
waste.
No tipping fee.
So this
There's a separate line item for that later on.
So this reflects the people that work at that center on the days it's open just to pick up recycling.
Yeah. And what I'm trying to do too, in reference to the personnel out in the center, two of these employees that work out there Friday, Saturday, and Sundays, because as council knows, last year as of July 1st, we no longer were accepting bulk in the center.
You're kidding. We did that?
And I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did.
You're glad we did?
Yes.
Really?
I had heard that you were sort of rethinking that whole
I
thing.
have a question about
To
that.
go back and taking bulk?
Okay.
I have a question about that. if
Go
I
ahead,
may.
Mr. Maloney.
Mr. May. The curbside pickup that we installed last year, I believe as of July 1st of last year, this was supposed to, I believe, if I recall correctly, the report I received from you, Millie, was that it was going to most likely be tremendous savings to the township eventually. Where may I see those savings? Because I haven't found them yet. I'm
Page
looking.
J20.
That's under solid waste.
So it's not under the
No.
It's a separate
recycling?
line item for landfill fees.
All right, so that's another department? So we'll wait
We
till
will
I
get to
there.
that while
Okay.
Millie's here, yeah, we'll go.
On
through
that
in
same
order.
point, are the individuals who are out doing the curbside pickup, do they fall under recycling?
Yes.
So they're in the salaries and the wages that are there?
There's 4, because one has, there's 4 under salary wages for recycling. They work out in the center Friday, Saturday, and Sundays, because that's when the center's open. And then during the week, I utilize them. They get their days off during the week because their work week includes Saturday and Sunday, so we utilize them during the week also for curbside bulk pickup, or whatever else.
But
we
that
do.
all gets charged to the
Yes.
recycling budget.
How many days are we running the curbside pickup now? Is it Monday through Friday?
It's 4 days a week. And it's 40 stops a day.
And if I may, if you don't mind, what's the current wait time for a pickup, I should say?
Right now, 2 weeks,
So it's 2 weeks.
just about.
Is that 2 crews out there?
2 crews a day.
One in the truck and,
One with the garbage truck and one with the rack body for the appliances, white goods. But there's 4 people out every day.
and 4 people together are making 40 stops a day?
Each crew does 20 stops.
Each crew is 2 people or 4 people?
Two.
So there's 2 crews of 2, and each crew does about 20
20
pickups a day.
Stops. You know.
Setting cost aside for a second, if you had another crew, or 2 crews, I guess that would be, how much reduction in the time for waiting would that make it?
Should cut it in
It would be
half.
the same because now I need a truck.
I'm saying, forgetting that, so let's say you had the truck, had the 2, how much reduction would there be?
You talking about doubling the crew or adding 1 crew?
You have 2 crews now.
You have 2 crews now,
Right, yeah.
one doing one certain function, you said, picking up the bulk items, one doing the smaller items. So if you added, I guess, 2 crews, that would be,
Well, we could do
Cut in
another
half to a
20
week.
stops a day. Instead of doing 40, you'd be doing 60.
with 1 crew,
Right.
1 more crew.
Right. And it'd probably cut it down to about a
I've
week.
already
So
calculated it, Cynthia.
if 40 a day is 2-week wait, then 80 a day would be a 1-week wait.
Yeah.
So
something
2 more crews make, and, okay. So
2 weeks isn't
what we
bad.
need as a rough piece of work is what that cost would be versus the benefit of it. Again, we're trying to provide services to the town. Even the audit recommends that we do still go to provide essential services to the town, where we provide customer satisfaction. So I'd like to know what the cost versus the reduction would be. In total cost, it would be the cost of the trucks, cost of what that would be. Just so we have that number and we can debate it later.
Well, Leanne, let's talk about that later, because the long-term goal is not to increase it. The long-term goal is to have one company doing everything.
You want to clarify that for the benefit of the people sitting here?
Millie, the long-term goal was that our trash pickup and our recycling pickup, eventually, long-term, the one company would be doing our recycles, our trash, and our bulk pickup. Like from where I came from in Virginia, the trash man picked up the recycling, our trash, and our bulk pickup. Certain times of the year, you were allowed to put that out. If it was a large and small, on a weekly basis.
Was it a municipal sanitation department?
No, it was not. It's privatized. It's not, had nothing to do with the municipality.
How small was the town?
It was a large town, larger than this.
Okay, just to keep in mind, tomorrow, March 1st, we start with a new company.
Right.
Recycling.
Now,
Centers.
but how long was our,
5 years.
5 years?
5-year contract.
But it's in our contract. It was put in our contract that there's a clause out, isn't there? I thought we put that in there.
5 years.
There's no out?
No, well, I wouldn't even say without looking
Yeah,
at the
I don't wanna-
contract.
If I may
ask a question.
State statute, every contract has to have an
Yeah.
annual cancellation
Right.
clause for budget
Right.
purposes.
Right.
If I may just ask a question. Where, in my previous, where I was previously employed, it was, bulk pickup was provided by a private contractor. And even then, it took 2 weeks because you had to call to get on the list. And then typically the way the contracts are is, we'll start on Monday, we'll see how much is out there by the time we finish up. So I think my question to council, specifically with respect to bulk pickup, is there a perception that you hear from your constituents that there is dissatisfaction with the wait?
Yes.
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 And it's also an eyesore when it's pretty big items that are sitting on the street for 2 weeks. People put it out and then they call.
Well, they
Then they're not
should.
going to bring it back to the house. They're going to leave it
do
sitting
that.
out. Well, they do though.
Is the
Let's
complaint
talk
the
real
weight?
world.
I'm sorry. Is the complaint the weight or the aesthetic issue?
A little of both.
If I can speak, I think what the problem is, it's a nice weekend, you want to clean out your basement, you want to put it to the curb, you expect that it's going to get picked up right then and there because that's when you had the availability to do it. And people don't understand that, sit it on the side of the house or in the garage until in the 2 weeks and then call. They want it instantaneous.
I absolutely concur with Cynthia. So if you do it one weekend, you expect by the next weekend that'll be picked up. Not that it goes through the weekend when you did it the weekend before, and it's into the next week.
That's-
And the other
Mindset.
frustration that I hear from residents that call and email me on this is, I have one old lawn chair. I just want to put out one lawn chair. So now they have to schedule a delivery, and someone is driving from this compound to pick up one little old lawn chair smack in the middle of Candlewood. I'm not second-guessing some of the recommendations we got, but I don't know that this is operating the way that I had thought it was going to operate, with a 2-week wait time, and also with some of these smaller items where does it really make sense to send out a truck and a crew to pick up a broken lawn chair because the garbage company won't pick it up?
Well, that's why I was asking the questions about the extra crews with the equipment, because if you have a route schedule, let's say, and if you have the manpower and the vehicles to do it, then you know every week this section is getting picked up this day, this time. It becomes just a route thing.
I thought we did say from the get-go that it would be, once it got up and running, I thought didn't we say it was going to be 2 weeks generally?
I recall it was more between 7 and 10 days. At least that was my recollection of what we had talked about.
Well, we've got more and more people moving in, which now,
Yeah, residential growth is actually down, though, since, I mean,
As a rate of growth.
as a rate of growth,
But there's still more coming in.
there's
really.
people coming in.
there is, and you have a lot of people that are moving out that want pickup. You have people
Of course
that are
they do.
moving
They want
in
it picked
that
up.
want pickup.
Do you,
And, it's
Hey, pull that
not
mic down a little bit too, man.
Okay, it's not that we come to your house and you may just have, say, a sofa.
A swimming pool.
We go to somebody else's
They
house
did.
and they have stuff lined up 100 feet.
that's right.
So it's not, that one item or two items. You'd be surprised what's out there when they do put it out. Nothing too, Cynthia, you have brought up about, a private contractor. I've researched this also, and we've talked about this in the office. If for some reason, say hypothetically, you contracted with an outside contractor to pick up curbside bulk, are they going to be limited to what they pick up? Are they going to say, well, we're only going to pick up 4 or 5 things and the rest we're not going to do? Or are there going to be items that they're not going to be picked up and they're going to call Public Works and say, okay, the contractor was here, but they left this, and that. Who's going to, who's going to wind up going back out there? We are.
And I know exactly what you're talking about, because the recycle guy, many of my neighbors recycle cardboard, whatever they do, and the recycling guy will leave that, they do it nice and neat, tied up, and it's left there every week. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Day after tomorrow.
Right.
As of March 1st, I included that in our contract to have cardboard picked up.
But I think you know where we're going with this. He's the liaison to the DPW. He knows what the long-term, what we would like to see done, but for the reason for implementing what we're doing so far. I hope it works out, and I think Bob understands it, and you guys can take it offline, because it's
I'll
probably
come over,
the
we'll
time.
talk about it.
Okay. Bottom line is manpower.
Right.
That's bottom line in equipment.
I just have one question. When the center used to be open, it was open 6 days a week. Do you have anything there that says the number of annual the number of annual visits, total number of trips?
No.
Do you have any guesstimate at all? 5,000, 20,000?
For the course of the year or a weekend?
On an annualized basis.
Okay, well, I can tell you by the permits that we have printed up every year,
Well,
like
I'll do that real quick. It's 40 stops a day.
Well, don't go there just yet, because I wanted to compare the number of drop-offs. It's not it shouldn't be an exact match.
Oh, you had all these outsiders that were coming here at that time, too, so it probably was a lot worse before.
In the summertime, on any given weekend, and G and I both have worked out there many weekends, on a Saturday and Sunday, you'll get 1,000 vehicles. Easy.
1,000 vehicles in a week.
On a Saturday.
1,000 vehicles on one day.
In one day.
1,000
The
cars.
reason why we know this, last year, Gina and I worked
a minute.
4th of July weekend. The weekend of 4th of July.
Hold on a second. 1,000. How many hours a day are you guys open? Did you used to be open?
We're open 8.
So 125 vehicles an hour.
You were getting 125 vehicles in
Yes,
an
and you know
hour.
why we know that? Because of the permits that we gave out that day. And
My
that's when we
God.
were taking bulk.
Well, then you can tell why we have a backlog, because at 40 stops at 52 weeks, that's 8,320.
But remember, a lot of those trips of the 1,000, probably 900 of them were out-of-towners.
my God.
Or landscapers or
But they couldn't.
from out of town and stuff before.
Okay.
Contract.
Is there anything else on recycling? Anybody has any questions or comments with? What's next, Mr. Filiatro? What page?
Let's go right down to buildings and grounds.
Buildings and grounds.
Next department.
J15?
I do stand corrected one thing when we were talking personnel and checking this, that minus 40,933 in the manager's adjustment for November was the maintenance worker that we discussed earlier. So that the maintenance worker had been taken out during the November managers' meetings.
So I take it under buildings and grounds that this must include some adds to staff. Because it looks like it's about a 23% increase. So, I mean, it would have to, right?
For regular employees.
Yeah,
On regular employees?
There
First line.
are 3 part-time seasonal for 16 weeks that are projected in there.
And also maintenance worker. You took that
No,
out?
that took that out.
You did?
Sorry.
That's that?
Okay.
Building and grounds is under the DPW, Millie?
Yes.
Any questions on the salary piece? We're going to revisit, obviously. Is there anything, you commented before, I think, on staffing in general, right? Okay. Sure. Okay, so the operating expenses. This is another, you have another communications piece down. Is this related to the other communication system? It's about almost down to the bottom. It looks like about a
7,000.
1,300% increase.
Okay, as far as the communication account for B&G is, personnel have no portable radios at all to communicate with each other during the day. They use their own cell phones. And not like our department, we have handheld radios and,
I don't believe they're their own cell phones.
they use their own cell phones. I know that
Why
because
don't
I
they use
call
the
them.
ones we issued them?
The employees do.
Why don't they use the one we issued them?
Not maintenance guys. No. No.
The foreman out.
Just the foreman, right, which is the foreman and the mechanical supervisor, but your maintenance workers do not have any portable radios.
We have that.
I don't have the list with me.
Okay.
We have, yeah, I know you issued
All right,
that,
we'll go,
but-
you'll look at it and let us know.
Yeah. Outside of that, I mean,
So buildings and grounds is up 20%, primarily as a function of the ads to staff, is that right? Of the proposed ads to staff?
yes. Am I to understand that the maintenance worker was taken out?
Yes, I
Okay.
see that here.
That was taken out before it got to us, so we have to,
And this is out. Okay.
what's that?
Her.
What did she say?
Hey, we're going to talk about that later. I heard you. Don't say it. You never know.
Okay, vehicle maintenance.
Vehicle maintenance.
Best run department.
We're going in the wrong direction, this budget. Wrong direction.
It went from 17 to 22 cents on one.
I'm not voting for it, so good luck.
The
Just telling you now.
The decrease
You know, I don't
in
vote
salary
for it.
wages of 27,000 there is
It's
the
contractual.
parts inventory
When
clerk
you're
that
fired.
talked about that had been cut in November.
It's the only way you're going to do it.
That was already taken out in November?
The parts inventory clerk was taken out in November.
So you guys took it out before it got to us,
Right, that's the 27,206.
okay?
And you cut
But there's still
overtime.
the 18% obviously includes the additional person in the mechanics area.
Yes.
Was that one person?
One person.
Okay.
Is that the inventory control person? Is
No, supposedly that was taken out.
that mechanic? Well, they were both-
The mechanic is in, but the inventory person, I think you said you took out.
Right.
So the mechanic is in, the inventory person as of now is not
No.
in. Okay.
If we had an inventory clerk and that freed up the mechanics from running around and getting parts and stuff like that, could we do with one less mechanic?
No,
Absolutely not.
absolutely
Okay.
not.
Just a question.
No. Even if, because I've also asked for, a part-time, even if we had a part-time, say someone to work 20 hours a week in the parts and inventory department, to run for parts.
If
right,
you'd
one-
like to see
Go ahead.
I have a parts and inventory control person job description. If you'd like to see what it entails, would you like to?
Yeah, why don't
see it?
you give it to Mr. Walsh, please?
Oh,
We'd be
sure.
happy to take a look at it. Why don't you, if you may, take this offline with the manager, and maybe there's another way to go about this if a part-timer is possible. Maybe it's a seasonal thing where during your busiest time, if there is a busy time. I know you can't control when vehicles break down, you can't pick when they're going to break down, but I would have to imagine that there is a certain time of the year that, based on your historical records, you're treating more vehicles. So maybe it's a seasonal thing. I don't, we'll look to you guys to come up with the recommendations, but if it can be done part-timer, maybe you can make that pitch to the new manager. Is that fair enough?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, what else do we have? This looks like you've got increases for fuel oil, tires and rims for police. Does this contemplate replacements, or is this because of we're adding the additional vehicles?
I don't know what you have, really.
This is yours. Police tires, grease and oil.
Well,
I-
the
when I
police
look at-
tires, we right now, we have a $1,000 a month through a tire vendor for police tires is what we normally spend. Each tire is $54 a piece under the state contract, and I purchase, I believe it's 19 tires a month, and that's been pretty good, because when I get to the end of the month, I'm just about out of tires. And that has to do with the tires wearing out. If a police car gets a nail in the tire, even if the tire is brand new, we cannot put it back on, we cannot plug it. So what we do is we take that tire off, we'll put it back into storage for another township car that we'll use it on. That's not a pursuit vehicle.
Okay. Any other I take it that obviously the grease and the oil is up 36% because cost has gone up that much?
They actually
Absolutely.
expended $8,200.
Right.
On appropriation of $5,500. Did so by savings within the rest of the department. So the budget appropriation, actually, if you look at it, is slightly less than what the actual cost was last year. And that the grease and oil has gone in the same way that gasoline has
Gasoline
gone.
has,
It's all
of course.
petroleum products.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we could go over this if it keeps up this way
Yeah.
in 2006 again, no matter what we appropriate to you.
You're talking about it going up again next
Yeah,
year?
That's you know,
Can't control it.
shake the dice and roll them out and see what happens.
say that to me, Jeffrey.
And trying to budget for petroleum products
It's hard.
that's really as scientific as just rolling a set of dice. What's the price going to be 6 months from now? Really?
Okay.
All right, what's next that we have for this particular department?
Solid waste?
What page is that on? J20?
23. No, I'm sorry.
I think it's J20, is that right?
J20.
So here's where we see all the big savings, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Let's see. 5%.
No, wait a second.
Well, yeah, but if you look for half a year, landfill fees, we budgeted $483,000 last year. Actual expenditures were $293.
That was for half a year.
Well, that was half a year of the change in the operation of the recycling center.
Mm-hmm.
Our monthly fees for the recycling center prior to July 1st was costing the township in tipping fees $30,000 a month,
On average.
on average.
Maybe we can start with,
Now we're just about 7,000 or 8,000.
can we start with the recycling? So recycling materials are up 41%.
New contract,
That's the new contract?
starts tomorrow.
So we have a new contract and we're paying 40% more than we used to.
Went out to bid. 5-year contract.
We accepted that?
Well, we accepted it actually on recommendation that this was the,
That's what I'm saying, we
That
accepted
was the low
Yeah,
bidder.
it was a low bidder.
They were low bidder.
Don't forget, they factored in the increase in gas prices also.
40%?
And also
So when the
cardboard.
prices come down
That
in
was
gas, are
additional.
we gonna get a reduction in that contract? Is there a clause for that?
Prices come down in gas?
Well, if they do.
Then you gotta I want you to factor in too, I think they're gonna charge us 25 cents.
So we're supposed to be making money off of recycling materials, not spending money on it.
No, this is.
This is for
This
pickup.
is your
This
curbside
for
pickup
curbside
program.
pickup
Curbside pickup.
recycling. You're
This is the
recycling-
normal recycling,
Yes.
glass,
Oh, okay.
aluminum,
All right.
bottles, newspaper, what have you, the stuff they pick up at the curb.
Yes,
And cardboard now.
and cardboard as of tomorrow.
Wow.
Yeah, I have to profess that I'm not completely thrilled that I don't think I was aware that this was a 41% increase over what we had. I would have rejected the bid and went out again and again and again and again. This is totally not acceptable
And Mayor,
to my
they
way
were
of
low
thinking.
bidder.
They may have very well have been.
Well, they were low bid.
I bid all the time in my private business, and we're low bid, and we're still higher than perhaps, we need to be.
The contractor that we're doing for 285,000 did bid,
And would they bid?
and he was higher than this guy,
Well,
and we would have awarded it to him.
Clearly, I'm certain we gave it to the low bidder, but I just cannot believe that for the same number of residents,
It's not the same
Okay.
number. That's the thing, because the contract that we presently had, remember, this contract was 5 years ago.
and the contract didn't include an automatic escalation fee based on the per unit,
It's
the number of
based
units?
on- What we do is, every month, from the building department, they send us down a report, or Gina calls up there to find out how many new homes, okay? And we average 25 new homes a month.
And their contract didn't afford them?
Yes.
They had okay, so the contract allowed them to increase the price.
But they didn't factor in a 5-year-old contract the cost of gasoline 5 years ago when they bid that $200,000 contract.
But the cost of gasoline on an extrapolated 5-year basis is not up 40%. It's not possible.
It's up over 100% on the 5-year basis, well over 100.
Wait a minute.
We were paying less than $1 a gallon 5 years ago. We were paying 75 cents a gallon for gasoline 5 years ago.
You were paying 75 cents a gallon.
Sure we were.
Where'd you buy your gas?
Oh, hey,
Actually, I remember
It was about
2001 was
$1.
89.9.
I have the
Yeah,
cheapest gas in the state down by me.
I was going to say, man.
I'm down below $2 now.
Well, we should have went to a bulk person down there too, Jeffrey.
I have 5 gas stations in my area. They're having a gas for it.
But even if that's the case, you factor in a 100% increase in gasoline, and you factor in increases in salary and wages. It just, 41%, 5 years later seems
I mean, we're all
obscene.
speculating on an outside contractor.
Mayor, I don't know about that during the insurance industry. I'd be happy if my insurance rates only went up 40% in the last 5 years.
That's because you don't have the right person as your health benefits consultant.
He's the same guy that has the townships now.
That's not me.
Getting low. Wait, it's only 8:20. It's not even late yet.
Mr. Mayor, if I may. So the $415,000 that we're spending on this, is this going to be yearly for the next 5 years? Is it going to be the same amount over the next 5 years? So this is a 5-year contract?
No, each year it increases with the homes that, the new homes every month. Some months you might have 10 new homes, not resales, new ones. Some months you have 20. In the summertime, it's more.
All right, this may be a discussion for another day, but I would like for us to consider looking at the buyout clause on this contract and revision this. 40% increase, minimum, which increases every year depending on how many new homes get built. To me, it's outrageous. I certainly, and it's my own mistake for not asking the questions when I voted on this, but I would have never voted on something like this had I known, ever.
The structure of this agreement is the same as the old one, as far as addition, any new homes that come online and get
Well, I'm not
charged.
arguing that. I'm upset with the $415,000 price tag. That's what I'm upset
Before
about.
we get into something that potentially could get us into court or anything else like that, let's pull the bid
That's what I'm saying.
paperwork, and let's look at what we had to look at the time the bid was.
That's what I'm saying. It's
Can-
maybe a
I'll
topic.
coordinate that with
Could we also see, just for everyone's benefit, maybe we can just circulate a copy of the actual agreement that has the terms and conditions, the exit clauses, and what have you, so we can all see that. Fair enough?
I agree.
Mayor, on a higher level than our pay grade, I would note that in Burlington County, all recycling is done by the county.
That's right.
And they utilize, as employees, people from the Special Services School as a vocational training thing that they pair up with professional laborers. So if you're ever at an opportunity to mention this to someone, be happy to introduce them to people in Burlington County.
Yeah, where I grew up in Middlesex, this was done by, and I believe it still is, the county owns the contract and negotiates favored pricing on behalf of however many municipalities are in the county, and they benefit from the economies
Ocean County does that.
Ocean County does it. Why Monmouth doesn't do it, I don't know. If anybody knows a good freeholder, let them know. We could have Bob look up that for us.
Club Monmouth.
All right. Anything else on,
Conversation we need to take up.
on utility, before we get to,
The only other
Next.
item that I'll make a mention, there really isn't much to discuss, 'cause there is a Clean Communities grant. It's entirely grant, there is no match. What the grant is $46,000,
Where's this?
J22.
yeah, J22. Yeah, it is actually part of the landfill tax that everybody pays. So the landfill gets redistributed to municipalities. It's entirely grant, there is no match involved, so.
But what is this utilized for?
This goes, Millie, if you want to address that, this goes to street cleanup, the street side litter cleanup,
Signs,
signs.
materials, vests, gloves, stickers, education, group presentations, it does it all.
So I just thought I'd make mention, I don't think it really requires a lot of
Okay.
discussion here.
is there anything else in the operating budget for this department team?
You're up to engineer.
We're up to engineering, and then we're going to go back and do their capital and engineering's capital at once? Is that the
Yeah.
plan?
Yes.
Okay. You guys are okay staying? You don't mind?
No, it's fine.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Nunziato.
Good evening. Mine is actually very easy.
It is?
Absolutely.
What page?
J10?
He doesn't even know what page, but he knows it's easy.
J10.
No, it's not 10.
No.
Okay.
The budget's easy, the hard part is finding the right page.
J6.
There you go. Thank you.
You sunk my battleship. Did you? That's a good game.
It's freezing in here.
J6, all right, engineering. Salaries and wages are up, it looks like, by the contract with steps, is that right?
That's correct.
There's no adds to staff in engineering?
No.
That were added, okay.
Not unless you want to be gratuitous.
Maybe.
Engineering and professional fees are up about 11.5, can you walk us through that?
That is actually the manager's line item, which we go through every year. Historically, it's the professional services contracts for special projects.
They're the non-attorneys, the planners, engineers.
Oh, this is planning and zoning?
No.
It's township.
Oh, these are the township's professionals?
These are township profession, non-lawyer professionals.
Okay, so it's the planner, the engineer, the COA planner?
That's correct.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
all
Yeah.
those positions?
Why is it up 11% though?
Yeah, I'm trying to think, why is it up 11%? If anything,
I thought we kept our contracts, everything was the same.
that should be flat.
At the time we were budgeting in November, of course, we did not have the year-end figures. As you see, we did cut it down. But we didn't have benefit of our December 31st expenditures at the time and have not made any further adjustments since then until tonight.
What I would, so long as the council agrees, I mean, it's sort of been our policy, at least the last 2 years, to put the caps in on the professional fees and give them their budget. And I think we should do the same thing, and I think that we should ask them to work within the same 2005 approved amounts this year as well.
The only unknown that sits with this one is the special projects. We talked about perhaps somebody to do a floor plan down in court.
Would that come here?
And that would be in this line item, and of course, it's hard. Sometimes there are projects that come up during the years, they just naturally hit this thing. So, when council says to manager and CFO, we want this done,
Well, Jeffrey,
you're not going to be pleasant to me if I turn around and say,
Not for
there's no
nothing,
money,
but-
do it next year.
We'll always be pleasant to you, Mr.
Yeah.
Filiatro.
But Jeffrey, just, you mentioned the court. I mean, the court was requesting $10,000 to change the window and so forth. I mean, we're certainly not gonna spend more than that in designing the window, are we?
No, and certainly that, but that is a project that wasn't done last year, wasn't contemplated. It's not a large project. The court also, you've authorized $26,000 in improvements last year. This is an additional 10, and we felt, and the manager felt it prudent that rather than piecemeal improvements to the building, we look and see what needs to be done, the total cost of it, and certainly it warrants paying a small amount. And it's just something that wasn't anticipated. I don't anticipate that's going to be very expensive. This line item, by the way, in the past, designed the access road to Hidden View.
I was just going to say, so.
All right?
That's right.
That was a much larger project than, say, somebody who's floor plan in court.
Farnham track?
So, we do have to allow, if you turn around and say, well, we spent 218, let's make it 218.
That's right.
You're not allowing yourself for any kind
It's
of
a fair
special
point.
projects whatsoever.
Is there a way that we could get sort of the breakdown that yields the anticipated 260? Because you raise a good point. I mean, for example, Mrs. Showmaker just reminded us, sort of on the side, about the Bonham track and some of the expenses with that. So from my own understanding, it would be helpful to sort of see the things that make up, what's the matter?
Can I get Jeffrey to say that on speaker? What?
What did he say?
We haven't seen.
You haven't seen anything yet.
What are you talking about?
Bonham track.
Actually, it may be beneficial just to look at the expenditures from '05 to see how we generated last year's numbers, and then from there we can maybe base this year's projections.
Well, I think what would be useful is perhaps we see what we did in '05 and what we plan on doing in '06. That yield, I mean, somebody came up with a number of 260. So it had to be based on, obviously, the COA planner and the township's planner.
The requested number was 313.
We projected that based on expenditures through October. When we met in November, we used the October expenditures, extrapolated that forward, and rounded. It wasn't really rocket scientist stuff. I mean, it was based on 10-month data at the time. We're now sitting here with 12-month data
Sure.
to work
Well,
with.
what I would ask, if the council agrees, is that we see what the anticipated projects and professionals are that constitute, now that we've got 12 months' worth of billables, what makes up that line item? Because it's obviously not, it's not an insignificant amount. And once we have that, maybe the number needs to be 270 and we make it something less. Maybe the number winds up being 220. I mean, we don't know, but I think we need to see that backup. Does everybody agree?
Yes.
Okay. So we're not going to touch that one until we see whatever backup is available. The next one, I think, is, you got a 33%, but that's on a $400 approval, so that kind of skews things.
I'd like to debate that one.
So forgive me for asking, Bill. The speed humps are in capital, on a serious note, correct?
That's
If that's where they
correct,
would be
yes.
reflected?
Yes.
Okay.
What?
Does this, it's a capital expense?
But they weren't
They weren't in last
capital
year.
last
No.
year.
They were in there last year, but
They are in capital, not operating, that's correct.
they're in capital in general, and if
Oh,
we
yeah.
buy more,
That's what
which we
they're at,
need,
yeah.
they would have to be in capital. They are in a box someplace. Does this, another general question, if I may, when we have situations like we do at the corner of Vanderveer and Howell Road, or other situations where we need to go out and do the road improvements and putting up guardrails because of the unsafe conditions and what have you, where does that get reflected in the budget?
I actually, last year, I put a line item in capital for intersection improvements. And
Okay.
And it was about $100,000.
All right, so that's capital as well.
Yes, correct.
Is there, knowing all the things, you have the misfortune of being at most of our meetings, knowing the things that our customers are asking of us that are sort of traffic-related, knowing a piece of that is the police department, and they're working on it. Is there anything else that should be in the operating budget that our customers are asking for that we need to wrestle with, even if it means more expense for now?
Again, as Ms. Bernier indicated in Public Works, as far as the sign account, for the posts and the signs, if in fact, for instance, we're doing a special project, i.e. the guardrails, and there's going to be some signage that's associated with that, maybe some line striping, typically I'll try to package that all in this intersection improvement project rather than try to, isolate her specific line items, which may be piecemeal. So there is some overlap. So I try to broadly encompass it into my intersection improvements, which may even include such things as maybe we need a little acquisition of an easement, perhaps site triangle easement or construction easement, utility easement. And we'll try to put some of the survey and the legal work and the acquisition in that as well, too, because it's
Okay.
just too difficult to put it all in separate line items.
All right, is there anything else for Mr. Nunziato
I
in
do
the
have a
operating
question,
budget?
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Bill, as you know, we have been requested by several residents in the, I guess on the corner of Newton's Corners and Easy Street with the flowing area there. It's becoming a real issue. We just got another email just recently from another resident in that area that the council saw, mayor and council. Is there anything in CAPS that you are putting aside or requesting to get that finally fixed once and for all? Or because I hate to wait and yet another year.
No, my office has actually designed a solution involving storm drains and pipes. We've actually made an application determination from the DEP as to whether or not some of the applicable stream encroachment permits that may be necessary. So we have actually started on that, and I do have that anticipated in my budget, maybe a little bit higher than the number I had first. It appears to be somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000 worth of materials if we did it in-house.
Now, didn't you need an easement from one of the
I was gonna
homeowners?
say,
Yes.
is that
We would probably need 3 easements.
and that's included in the 25 to 30,000? No.
Well, no.
No.
But I do have money, hopefully, in our traffic light from last year, if everything goes according to plan. And the bid, we can keep the bid the way it is. I would be able to utilize existing encumbered money that may be.
Well, I know where you could save $150,000 real easy.
I know where you mean.
What are you looking at me for? It predates me.
No, it doesn't predate you, Mr. Mayor.
The four-ways traffic?
Yes.
Oh, how far back has that been under works?
The bid was actually awarded September of '04.
But when did the request for that come in?
Oh, the first time, probably mid-'90s, I would
Yeah,
guess.
so no, if you're looking down here.
Yeah, but you guys approved it.
We did. All right, anything else under the operating budget? Nothing, okay. Where, that's all you have in operating?
That's all I have.
Boy, okay.
Told you it was easy.
So you want to, since you're up here now, go through your capital?
Sure.
Okay, what page? Capital for Just as a time check, what other departments, or is this it?
This is it
So
tonight.
once we get done with capital, with both teams, we're finished?
Yes.
Okay.
Then we would.
Engineer, bottom of page G5, goes up into G6.
G5, the bottom, engineering, okay?
Oh, he's always asking for tons.
Here's the extra .05 miles of road we get paid for $1 million, right?
7.
7 miles of road for $1.7 million.
Wait a minute, we're starting on G5.
7.
G5 at the bottom. My God.
What about my vehicle on G1?
That didn't make the
No, come on,
the
guys, you're
final
killing
list.
me.
Oops.
But don't look here, what happened? You guys took it out?
No, I just wasn't watching that.
Oh, okay.
sheet. I went right.
Well, we're on
You jumped the
G5.
gun on me already, see that?
We're on G5, Mr.
There-
Nunziato,
that's
so
what-
go
On
ahead.
G1, there is.
Okay, we'll go back to G1.
That's nothing.
Street overlay, this is $1.7 million. This is a part of the ongoing maintenance. You've gotten about $3 million already, right?
1 million of which is going for the Memorial Drive, and 2.5 or thereabouts, we are underway inspecting the roadways to get that out to bid.
Right.
Yes. Correct.
So the extra 1.7 will get us how many additional miles of road?
Well, assuming that the price of blacktop and fuel is not going to be $3 a gallon by the time we're awarded, because there is a fluctuation in the contract that allows them to bid it at the rate now, and when they actually go and pull their truck to the hopper, whatever the price is, the market price, if it's less, we save, if it's more, we pay more. But again, it's anticipated about 7 miles of roads.
7 miles.
We can strike the
I did
farm tracks off.
I did a paper
Can't do it.
recently on asphalt, and
That's
just
not
for
right.
council's benefit, not only is it a byproduct, but there's less because refining is so much better than it used to be, there's actually less of it. So it's a byproduct of petroleum processing, so it goes up exponentially, meaning asphalt. Secondly, because the refining process has gotten so well, the asphalt's not as strong as it used to be. So where you might get a road for 30 years, now you can expect the road to last between 15 and 25 years, depending on exposure to the elements. And it's a weaker road. So that's something to bear in mind as well.
Great.
So by the time we get them all fixed,
Time to fix it.
You gotta start all over.
At 7 miles a year, by the time we get them all fixed,
yeah, we're not getting them all fixed. We're not getting, right, there's 360 miles of roads, I believe in.
Well, not all 360 are our responsibility, though, right, Bill? There's about 170 that are our responsibility?
Not all 360. The real figures, again, that's, I think all 5 of you would probably give me different answers if we all.
Well, the
tried-
county's responsible for maintaining some of the roads.
Correct.
county and the state.
Right, sure. And there's private roads.
So we're 150, it would take us at this pace 22 years to fix the roads, of which time they're no good again. Correct?
It's,
That's great.
Endless.
Talk about swimming upstream.
That's much better than what was spent in the past, where in 20 years, we'd only have paid maybe a third of them.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, I'm not blaming nobody up here. I'm just,
Yeah, with this 1.7, we'll have invested over $4.5 million in 3 years. And for that, we're going to get 21 miles of road.
I hope to stretch that, though, but yes.
I hope so,
that's-
too.
There may be other strategies to look at.
Okay. All
But
right.
for Bobby's benefit, too, there's no complete tear out and restructuring of roads, there's just overlays, there's just like 3 different things that can be
Right.
done. So once it's done right, we can go back maybe before the 22-year period and deal with some of the roads, too, without having to reconstruct the entire roadway.
All right, so curbs, sidewalks, tree removal. I would suspect this includes, I hope it includes, the
7 emails we have.
issue dealing across the street with the Pop Warner and the Little League Baseball Complex, the things we talked about, back in, I can't remember what month it was when we had I think you were in that meeting.
I actually have money put aside from a prior year for that.
You do?
Yes.
Okay. I
And
mean,
this is more for like
offline,
Lake Road and some of the
We've
other
already-
sidewalks are getting lifted up?
we have to just, offline, we have to touch base with that and get Tom up to speed on that, because Little League season's going to be here soon, obviously. All right, so this contemplates other things.
Let me just clarify. I have curb sidewalk tree removal / municipal improvements. And quite frankly, there's only about $50,000 to $75,000 worth of tree, curb, sidewalk removal. The other 125,000 I actually had at least anticipated in my mind for such things as the Price property, which we now took over. There's an outbuilding, which we want to put improvements into. We have some work around Town Hall, Public Works. We need an ADA-compatible sidewalk in there. The Farm Lake piece, which I know you're aware is about 150 acres of on 547 there, where we've gone out to solicit RFPs from some of the consultants for wetland delineations.
The Farm Lake piece.
It's
Yeah, that's
another,
the
acquisition.
piece we were looking at for one of the
Oh,
sports
yes.
organizations. That's,
I-
it's not 150 usable acres.
Right.
That
It's
was the-
predominantly wet. There's what, maybe 15, 20 acres
Okay.
usable?
We're not sure, somewhere in that area. But there's somewhere, and I've got 3 or 4 proposals, there's somewhere between $25,000 and $50,000 worth of work just to delineate and then improvements from there.
Is there a way, unless the council feels differently, that we could see the individual projects that constitute what makes up the 200,000? Because I think that's helpful for us to
Sure,
know
absolutely.
what all these different projects are. So when we say to people, we're making investments in curbs and sidewalks and what have you, we know what's on the
Yeah, I
docket.
have that in my worksheets. You don't get
We don't see
the
that.
benefit of that.
All right,
That's
I'm gonna,
intersection
okay, so,
improvement.
That is
All right.
available in the manager's office. Anybody wants to see the budget request the department put through.
I think on this 200, unless anyone feels differently, we'd like to see this one as the whole book, but.
Sure.
Okay, so the 200 on the curbs and sidewalks. And on the intersection improvements, does this include, to Mr. Malabe's point, for example, is the Easy Street, Newton's Corner Road intersection in this? Of the 300,000?
Yeah, absolutely.
It is?
It was, I mean, again, this actually was done back in August.
Okay.
But I can absolutely just shuffle it and absolutely.
I mean, it
put in.
probably makes sense, at least in my view, that we probably get, it's 200, 360, so 560, 570,000. There's at least $570,000 in curbs, intersections, road programs, GIS upgrades. If we could perhaps get the specific breakdowns that show that whatever the project was, and then the related cost of that total, because I think that'd be helpful for us to know what we may be
Sure.
including or taking out. Everybody
Absolutely.
agree?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh, you agree?
Fine with that, Mayor?
Okay. So then the last one is the Bonham Track soccer fields. Now, I know we talked about this a little bit when Ms. Schlegel was here for her presentation a few Saturdays ago. And I don't know what piece of this, Mr. Nunziato, for your benefit, when she was here, we talked about. Unfortunately, it does not appear as the grass can grow as fast as anyone might like it. So it won't be ready for the more accelerated date. I think we said it would be, was it spring of '07? Not fall of '06, it would be spring of '07. So it is, can any of this wait until that time, or is this piece, or these pieces that need to be done now?
Well, again, this budget was prepared in August, rather, of 2005. In subsequent meetings and conversations with Remington Vernick Vina, they have actually, now the project, I believe, is 5 or even 6 phases. Phase 2, my Phase 2 here for the $1 million or thereabouts was for 3 concession buildings, the septic fields, and the parking, lighting, and signage. And again, that probably could be put on hold, for a season. That was back in August of last year, what the anticipated Phase 2 would be. Again, we're probably on somewhat of a decelerated timetable, so yes, it could probably be deferred.
Could I ask this again with the council's indulgence? Can we get that new, well, can we just get the new breakdown by stages? So if it's a 5-stage plan,
Well, what he was just talking about, septic fields and some of those other things, the grass can't be let alone to grow unless everything else is done. If you're waiting to rip it up, that prevents the growing season.
we have to get that.
I mean, I agree with Councilman Tabasco here. You're putting off another year.
No.
Well, you cannot, this has to be in this budget to be started and done, some of these things in 2006. If you don't start building the roads, putting the lights infrastructure in, the whole ball of wax.
That
Well,
won't be ready for '07.
We went out to bid on Phase 1, correct, Bill?
Yes, correct, yes.
We received bids last week before.
And that was in last year's budget. So we've already set aside, in last year's capital, unless I'm mistaken, we set aside monies for a Phase 1 on Bonham.
Yes.
So someplace, there's capital money that's been set aside.
Right.
Because we needed to we needed to grade the fields, we needed to clear the shrubs, and so there's got to be something already in there.
1.5.
How much?
1.5.
So we already put 1.5 in, so this is an additional $1 million.
Well, I'm told, maybe Jeffrey should tell you the whole number
That's what I
for
want to know.
Bonham.
Is there 1.5 million away now, Jeffrey, for the bottom track?
Yeah, Phase 1 is funded.
Yeah.
It's funded.
So what is Phase 1? Just in 30 seconds or less.
I don't have it in front of me.
I think in 30 seconds or less, I would rather hear what the 6 phases are going to cost overall. What is this entire project, more or
I
less?
believe that's
It's
just
still
what
part of
I
the
am.
same
We need to
question.
Yeah.
distribute that to you. I don't recall.
Right.
I did see the figures this morning.
What was it? Guess. Take an educated guess.
Is it that you don't want to alarm us tonight?
Absolutely not. It's soil your underwear figures.
I haven't seen correspondence, but I did my own
Just not
calculations
gonna
last
cover.
month, and I
And-
came up with somewhere between 4.8 and 6 to the high end.
Yeah.
That's-
And
yes.
Remington, Vernick, and Vina, I think, predicted, when all was said and done, this was going to cost about $5.5 million, and that was about 2 years ago.
Well, they're pretty close.
I think they said about 5, yeah, you're right, Mayor, about 5 million.
And that was
finalized.
2 years ago.
Well, let's
So the
get,
breakdown, we have the breakdown of Phases 1 through 5, one already having been funded. The question becomes, do you want the construction management and engineering inspection fees done by them or done by our engineering department?
Who can do it cheaper?
Well, in-house, obviously, I would think.
In-house
Let's
is
not-
much
I don't
cheaper.
think we should discuss that. I think that's something.
Well, I mean, that's probably something,
Well,
Ms. Shoemaker's right, the management team should come back to us with recommendations
Right,
on
but
on
you'll
who should
get-
do it.
You'll get the breakdown within the next few days.
All right, can
My
you,
But to
concern,
keep
Mayor,
things-
is if we don't put this 1.07
Exactly.
now.
then we're not
Yeah,
ready for
you-
it.
if you don't keep on track, you will lose
So-
a year.
So the answer is,
Catch
this
up.
needs to be in
Yeah.
now to be
Correct.
ready
My
for
judgment,
for
I think,
Absolutely.
should
April
be-
'07.
Yes.
Okay, well, then that's the answer. I mean, we haven't already spent, how much in acquisition? What did we spend to acquire the property?
2.85?
Three, I was going to say around three.
So we spent
2.8.
$3 million to acquire the property. We've already mortgaged $1.5 million to get Phase 1 ready. We're not going to stop now. I mean, at
No.
least I don't think.
No, right.
We've
No,
made
I
a commitment to the community. We were going to have
That's
a
right.
first-rate soccer
You
complex.
don't go full steam ahead to slow down when you're just getting started.
I do think it would be to all of our benefit to see on a sheet of paper, Phase 1, this is what it will do, this is what budget it's in, and this is the cost. Phase 2,
Well, it's project management.
this is what it'll do, this is the year it needs to be done, and this is the budget that it's in. So we can see very specifically what constitutes this 5 or 6 phase plan, and when will it be completed.
I would ask that we should have that on every project we're doing in town, that we should have a project guide that has the milestones for each phase and deliverables when they seem to have been met, and, you know, when you reach diminishing returns, 90% of perfect is far enough.
I mean, I think this is probably the biggest project that we've been involved in, at least in the
Up
three.
till now.
Yep, up until now, at least the three of us have been up here.
Mhm.
That this
We
is the
had-
largest.
But I don't want to
project.
miss the point of what we first started. We kind of went into the weeds here a little bit, and the number one question that came up was, when is this going to be ready? And it says, I missed part of that, Helene was here last meeting, so it sounds like Helene said, look, we need a couple growing seasons before I can let kids on these fields and just destroy the whole complex. Right after it's built.
407.
She said realistically, it will not be ready
407.
till spring of '07.
No, 407.
All right, now, let me,
Spring or
fall. That makes more sense, but my point is, hearing that doesn't mean we delay doing everything else, because when she says she needs growing seasons, she means she wants that place to rest and just let the grass grow for a couple of seasons, so it can't rest unless everything else is done. So we cannot put stuff off, because she
Yes.
told us we're not doing anything
That's right.
until fall of '07 as far as having kids on it.
Okay. So I think we're in agreement that this needs to stay in, although we need to see what constitutes the 6 different phases. Fair enough?
We have it.
Okay.
Bill, we're doing all we can to apply for grants, and I know we just lost the county grant for $250,000 that we put in for the concession stands, I believe. They denied that application.
Yes.
I believe it was too intense a use, is how they,
Well, they
categorized
didn't
it?
feel we needed 3 separate concession stands for this facility.
You
And
see, I
obviously,
got a different story when I called.
I disagree with them, obviously, on that one, but
I got a different story. That they don't know how that language about too intense a use got into the report, because
Oh.
I said, well, I didn't put it there.
So
And,
the takeaway is, are we doing everything we can to get grants and whatever funding is available, right?
yes.
On Bonham, okay. What
Well,
else on
I'd like
cap?
to, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Please.
Mr. Davis, can you just tell us what did they tell you? What was the explanation?
They felt there wasn't enough detail in the, for the comfort stations. How many commodes, how many sinks, and so forth and so on. They wanted more detail. Unfortunately, they didn't call us back to tell us that. They just denied it on its face, so.
Okay.
What else does Mr. Nunziato have on capital?
Keep working on the list there.
So Echo Lake, we're going to top of page G6,
G6.
okay? Echo Lake,
well, actually,
Discussion on the cartographic and GIS.
I think what we had said was we wanted to see what's that
Breakout.
going to do? What's the breakout? I've never even heard of Sparrow Lake.
Echo Lake.
well,
No, look at it, Sparrow Lake. Here
Yeah.
is Sparrow Lake.
It's down by
Sparrow
Aldrich.
Lake is actually the lake that feeds the irrigation system for the park side, Deerwood Park.
That's what it is.
Oh, okay.
We have 4 major lakes in town, okay? Echo Lake, obviously, we have the new building with the HVAC system now functional, operational. We have Lake Louise
Jesus
across
Christ.
the street, which we just acquired for $1 million plus. That's a 60-acre parcel with beach.
Incredible.
We have Aldrich Lake, which we've been struggling to dredge for the last several years. And which one did I miss?
Lake
Aldrich,
Louise.
Lake Louise,
Sparrow.
Sparrow. And Sparrow, which feeds the irrigation system at Deerwood Park. Based on the lake restoration people and some of the dredging operators, and actually opening up and rejecting 2 full sets of bids, it was explained to us that we probably have somewhere between $2.2 to $2.5 million worth of dredging to do in the next couple of years. By virtue of having some grants that are probably close to exhausting their lives here and on their last extension of time, we have gone out to bid in September of '05 at about $650,000, $670,000, the first round on Aldrich. We actually did more work in-house, changed the specs to try to get it under budget. Came back a second time at $525. Again, we still only have about $325 in our coffers. So we still needed another $200,000 just to get Aldrich done. We had looked into a piece of equipment. Jeffrey and I have been working with the state for several months now, trying to get confirmation we can do this. But nonetheless, we had the vendor come out. He looked at our lakes. He took a half a day, came in from Delaware, looked at all of them, and he said, "Here's the machine you need." And I have a very detailed, very itemized quotation. And it's basically a $500,000 setup. It's $350,000 for a machine. There's a booster pump. There's flexible hoses. They come down and I think they train us for, I can't recall if it's a week. And we would basically do our own dredging. And again, Councilwoman Shoemaker, I know we've had this discussion, maybe not last year, but somewhere down the road we've had this conversation. And the bottom line is basically, the lakes will need to be done in some capacity. So do we spend $2.5 million? And just the guy goes away, come back in a couple of years and do it all over again. And again, this is something that's necessary, has to be done. Or do we consider possibly getting this piece of equipment? And again, it's not a simple thing. I mean, you're going to require a big trailer. You're going to have to rent a trailer, a large piece of equipment to get it on site, drop it on site. There's a little barge that you have to attach this to. It's very, very involved process. But again, it's a large ticket item. It's a decision that we have to make. And again, I don't want to have anybody try to say yay or nay at this point. But in lieu of going to Sparrow Lake improvements and Aldrich Lake dredging and Lake Louise improvements, again, all of which were just to get these things better water quality, possible recreation use in the future, and getting them to the point where they're not inundated by vegetative growth and just the water quality is poor. We said, let's put all our eggs in one basket and consider this out-of-the-box approach and looking for a piece of equipment. So in lieu of those three, 200 and 125 and 250, we already have somewhere around $300,000 still active in an account.
Maybe if I can jump in a little bit about active in that account, because I have been in contact with the Department of Community Affairs over those accounts, and there were grants granted to us. We had 1 year to spend the money. We are on and one of the grants, we're on our 5th extension. The state's becoming impatient.
What was it for that we've been waiting for 5 years?
Pardon me?
What was it for that we've been getting all these extensions?
This is for dredging of Aldrich Lake. They understand that, they gave us this $300,000, and the bidding came in first at $600,000, and then at $500,000. We also had trouble with DEP and permitting in the very beginning and everything. But we've changed stream here, and we said, well, we want to look at the option of, because of the cost of things, perhaps we want to look at the option of buying the equipment. They're willing to consider that, but they keep calling me. They want a decision. They want to know, is the town going to add enough money to buy the equipment, or is town going to add enough money to award the contract, or they're going to want the grant money back? And they're not really they're not going to be that fast to grant us more extensions till we know, what's the town going to want to do? And they want a definitive answer. Do we want to go out on a contract basis, or do we want to buy equipment?
I thought we received a letter stating that they were not going to renew that. We had a deadline on the one.
I talked to the gentleman 2 days ago. He's looking for our proposal and our letter as far as what we finally decided to do.
So I thought it said.
Bill, we talked about this about 2-3 weeks ago, and I specifically asked you, are we in jeopardy of losing those grants monies? And you pretty much said no, but we got to do something this year with this. If they're willing to, my opinion, if it's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned, if they're willing to allow us to use those grant monies towards purchasing equipment, and we're going to pay an additional $200,000, possibly $300,000 for a piece of equipment that I realize that it's going to be maintenance on this equipment, and every time you're going to move it around to go and dredge a lake, which is probably every year, I would think, you're going to need to rent this large piece of equipment to get it there and get it back. I realize that. But it beats spending, every couple of years, $1 million in dredging this lakes. It's crazy as far as I'm concerned. I think it's a no-brainer. But I'd like to obviously get more information on this piece of equipment and who's going to operate this piece of equipment, and so forth. That's something, that's somebody, I don't know, do we have somebody that would be capable of doing that?
Yes.
And so forth. But I think we should seriously consider this, especially if Mr. Filiatro claims that they may be willing to listen to us.
So what's the piece of equipment cost?
It's $315,000 specifically just for the dredge equipment. And it's got a booster pump because you actually have to pipe this to an area to dry it out. That's another $120,000. I have a whole full breakdown, and I will provide.
Can you maybe get a memo to the manager
Absolutely.
that just says equipment costs versus the expense to have this dredged with some sort of an amortization that over an X number of year period, this is the short and the long-term ROI? Because the Councilman's right, but
We would need people to operate that.
I was just going to say, keep in mind, Bill, if you will, indulge, and don't just put down the equipment and the cost and so, you need to
Total
understand
cost.
that it's going to take employees, it's going to take training, and this is not.
maintenance,
Yeah, this is
replacement
long-term.
parts.
We have these 4 lakes, it's a constant, and we listened to Millie, you can't just dump that on that department again.
No, absolutely not.
This has to be a separate entity in itself.
We need
So that
another
needs
mechanic.
to be, so when you're doing your proposal, you need to do that. And do it over, I would say, do it over a 5-year period.
Well, perpetual period, actually.
Well, it's a perpetual, but right now.
The exact grant amount is $275,000.
So it's,
275. Do we have? Are we allowed statutorily to lease equipment?
No.
And are some of these apparatuses in private industry? Obviously, we lease a lot of equipment. Is that a possibility here, where there's a lease and then there's a buyout? And
There's nothing against it. You have to be very careful over how to do it because most leases have a commercial interest rate factored into them. And of course, we can borrow much cheaper
Cheaper
than
than
that.
they
But there
can.
are municipal leases out there. One of the biggest ones we do is every other year we do an MCIA equipment
Right.
lease.
Is that a possibility that we could?
Commercial companies out there that do, but that's really a financing plan. A lease and buyback. And whether or not that's as cost-effective as just, we have an excellent bond rating right now, whether that's as cost-effective as doing our own or maybe leasing it through MCIA. I don't think timing-wise, I don't think the state's going to want us to buy the equipment this year, which MCIA just isn't available to us this year as far as the equipment lease. But I certainly can look at it. And, experience in the past, this has been more expensive than doing it.
So
on
the
our own.
takeaway on this one is we'll get a memo, you'll work on a memo to the manager, and we'll get some cost justification, and we have to make a decision about what we want to do.
any other suggestions?
Is there, another idea that I've had on some of these lakes, thinking sort of very potentially creatively, is there a way that we could sell the naming rights on these parks and have a private entity come in and operate them, put in paddle boats, fishing, whatever the case may be, and we own them, but we do not operate or are responsible for them on a day-to-day basis at all, and it becomes I don't know what it becomes, the Snapple Echo Lake Pavilion, whatever it may be, where legitimately
With
someone
that
comes in
limited
and
access,
provides, what's that?
Would that limit access? You know, we got
Well, I mean,
lots, 'cause
that's something
many of
we
them are
have
Green
to,
Acres.
that would be something we'd have to contemplate, whether or not we sell the naming rights, have the naming convention for some of these venues. And with that comes the responsibility to have to maintain and dredge, and they get to have paddle boats, and they get to do other things there.
I will give you some knowledge of where this may have actually happened. When I grew up in East Brunswick, there was the Herbert Sand Company, actually. It became Dallenbass, which was a community pool, and then it actually became the Crystal Water Park or something. I guess maybe for the reason you're mentioning right now, but somebody should check into that as to why that went the way it went. It's now a private entity that controls that whole couple of lake section there. Actually,
I mean, I would just, I mean, I kind of look at this, and I philosophically think that, we're not in the lake dredging, business. We're not in the business of doing a lot of these things. And to the extent that we can utilize private industry to absorb some of these maintenance expenses, and the reward for them is they get to sell product, put up their brand, provide other services. I don't know if the model makes sense revenue and profitability-wise for somebody, but I think it's something we have to look at, because even to buy a piece of equipment that, when all is said and done, may be a $500,000 expenditure for the municipality, just to take residue out of a lake that nobody swims in, I start questioning, is this what we're here for?
Well, the only danger there is that you want to maintain ownership, because we just got the 60-acre Lake Louise. If it got into private hands,
question.
eventually they wanted to put a development there to have waterfront homes and...
Well,
I mean, it would have to be our property that we
Right.
sublet for operational purposes. The PNC
Green
Arts
Acres would-
Center is owned by the state of New Jersey. They sell the naming rights.
Right, but Green Acres would probably discourage any kind of, public-private partnership with,
That's to be explored.
So that might blow it out right there, because they're all...
Is there a way, Mr. Zanetti, we could see if this is workoutable?
Ooh, that's a word.
Yeah, there you go. I'm getting tired.
I can find some literature for you on what I think conditions need to exist in order for something like that to work.
Okay.
As a start. In the meantime, I need to familiarize myself more with the area and the market.
Okay.
Fair enough.
What else did you have here? You've got,
well, I got Echo Lake and Lake Louise are not part of the dredging. I had 35,000.
oh, they're not part of it.
No, I had 35 for Echo Lake, and actually we had North Bank landscaping lighting was 5,000. The extension, the county is replacing that bridge at Echo Lake. And what we were going to do is extend the walkway, the sidewalk, to the possible nature center. That was 20,000, and then the skating rink, which we tried to survive at Sparrow Lake or at Deerwood Park, which didn't. We were looking for a long-term skating rink, which was 10,000. That came up to the 35. That's how Echo Lake has been. That number was derived. And similarly, Lake Louise, there's a dam, actually a dam on that lake, which does require dam inspection. And there is some site access and security concerns perhaps with that. Again, we just took it over, and there are some fencing and measures that Buildings and Grounds or Parks and Rec want to take in order to fix that up a little bit. And there was some soil testing we wanted to do too, and that's where the 50,000 there came from.
Lake Louise.
Is this the archery range? Where is that in the whole capital project scheme of
That
things?
actually is contiguous to Aldrich Lake, which is off the back of Bass Place.
No, I'm sorry, I not geographically,
Okay, I'm
but
sorry.
in the grand scheme of its readiness to be reopened and used from capital monies that have been set aside for it. I know it's not here.
No. Actually, the archery range is going to be the staging area for the dredging of Aldrich Lake, and until such time that the lake is dredged, the archery range is not going to be open for use.
So what's the council's pleasure on this Echo Lake and the Sparrow Lake improvement? I'm sorry, Sparrow Lake you said is dredging. It's Echo Lake that's not.
Echo Lake and Lake Louise, correct.
Echo and Louise, which is 85,000. Can we again, maybe
I don't know if we can make
for
this
my
decision
benefit,
tonight,
but yeah, we can't make it tonight.
That's
but
fine.
can we see, I mean, you just rattled off a bunch of things, but something analogous to these other things we've talked about, Lake Louise, and for 50 grand, here's what you get.
Absolutely. Sure.
So that way we can, because maybe of the 50 grand, we can only afford 15,000, but we'll at least have known what we're getting for the 15,000's worth.
Bill, would you consider these things a type of maintenance, or I always try to use we're going to use your building, for instance. That's a good example to use. No, I mean, long-term.
That's the 20,000 we have
I
for
mean,
the demolition.
I think what happened there is no one wanted to bite the bullet and do maintenance year after year after year, have projects. Therefore, you have a building that's fallen down, that needs to be bulldozed over. If we were to not, this year say, we can't spend $50,000 here, we can't spend $35,000 there. Long-term, what are we looking at? Because we know what we're looking at when it comes to the dredging. But in the overall scheme of things, for instance, the lights or the sidewalks, there's certain things that I think you can put up, but there's certain things that you have to maintain on a year-to-year basis. Do you understand what I'm saying, Mayor? I don't want us to get caught up.
That's why I think we got to see what's included. I mean, once we see, I don't have a problem with maintenance. I just want to, me personally, if we're going to spend 50 grand, I want to know what are we getting for $50,000.
Right.
And that's a fair request. That's
Okay.
It's true.
All right, the bike, that was taken out. Stormwater management items for $310,000.
Bike path is
Several years with the funding that was not taken out for this year.
No, bike path's in there.
Your consideration.
I lost you.
The bike path is in there. The
It was
Capital
taken out.
Coast Trail is
Oh,
out.
I'm sorry.
The bike path
Yeah.
is 40,000. There's 40,000 a year.
The bike
for several
path is
years.
40,000.
And the Capital Coast is gone.
Capital Coast is gone.
What do you mean by gone? Why is that gone?
We deferred it to
I don't
next
know.
year
Bill,
because it's just not going to.
Capital Coast Trail, 434,000.
Well, see, the interesting
No,
thing
no.
with Capital to the Coast is they're trying to go from freehold into wall, okay? And they just drew a line across Howell, said, here's the trail. And unfortunately, with the Manasquan River and the golf course and the water company, New Jersey American, which will not allow us access, we have a real problem. I mean, right now, and we'll have to take this offline with the manager and have a meeting, because we do actually have monies that were granted to us, and we are on an extension of time until around June or July 1st. And the path that has been approved by Capital to the Coast is something we cannot achieve.
What do you mean, I thought it was Hols's Corner Road across 9 towards,
Well, we're
down.
trying, we can get part of it done, but we just can't go east.
when you say east, when you go across Route 9, up down Windler, and then around,
We're trying to get the
Oakland,
reservoir to, let's say, Southern,
Old.
to the high school, and then back into Wall, because that's actually where the trail is. And we got resistance from the county going through the golf course. The DOT would not allow us to cross the narrow bridge at Southern because the Category 1 watershed and some of the buffers and just some of the bridge widths. So basically what they said, and again, we're going to have to take this offline because we could talk about this all night. They said, well, just sign the road. Put signs up and allow them to use the road. And that may not be the best solution.
Who approved this?
Well, again, this whole concept started under Christie Whitman, where we're going to try to get all the way to the coast. And when they went through Howell, they looked at the road network and said, here's how we should go. And
Okay.
Was the county involved in it? Did they sign on?
well, it actually came before the council a couple times, a couple years back.
It's a long process.
It
It
is.
is a very
It is a very long
offline
process.
conversation.
I want to make sure I just go back and understand something, because I could be falling behind, and I apologize. We've got the department request says 434,000, Capital to Coast Trail Phase 1. Am I missing something, or is
No,
that's here?
That's it.
That's correct.
I just can't in good conscience, I mean, I'm all for the getting from the capital to the coast, but not to the tune of $435,000 of taxpayer money. Not when we've got not when we have buildings that need to be rehabilitated. We need resources in the DPW. We have people who can't pay their taxes. I'll be damned if I'm going to spend $435,000 on a bike trail. I mean, that's just me, and I know it's not you. You're coming to us with the recommendation, but I just.
But again,
this is crazy.
Well, it could be incorporated into the road improvement program. When we do those roads that are eventually going to be the roads that they'll have the linings and stuff on, it should be part of the road improvement program.
I mean,
Well, it's a 10-foot wide bike walking path, which is going to be cleared, graded, and constructed with 6 inches of stone and 2 inches of top, which is in essence a large 10-foot wide driveway. So yes, it is very costly.
how much have we already expended out of township dollars on this?
Actually, it's all been grant money.
So we haven't spent a nickel.
No.
Correct.
So I'd say, and we can't work this one tonight, but short of other grant monies, how could we, in good conscience, with all the other deliverables we've got?
You have to
Again,
match.
what we've been doing was the whole nut is $434,000. So we do it 100,000 at a time. And that's basically what we have done. And we just show the balance in the budget, and it typically gets removed every year.
That's where you see similarly the bike, walking, horse path thing on
Okay.
phase with time around the reservoir, which is been
I
going
think
on
we
for
probably
5
should go off this one, and we'll come back to it.
Yes.
That's
right?
fine.
Okay. Stormwater management is 310,000.
Yes, and,
These are all things that have to be done this year pursuant to the new regulations.
well, there's one,
You can tell it's getting late because I'm getting cranky. I'll
Yeah,
have to
there's-
send the bill back to Trenton.
there's one item that I put in
Engineering
there
is the
for
expensive.
consideration. I'm trying to find it in here.
Yep, power station, 100. Stormwater inlet rate, 10.
$310,000.
It's here somewhere.
Jeffrey.
Here it is. Okay. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 items.
Where are we?
The big ticket item, again, is a vehicle and equipment car wash station. Lakewood, as a matter of fact, is in the process of installing one. We had looked at one down at the league. I had in here $200,000 for that. Turns out that does not include a building. The building would be analogous to, let's say, the OEM building that we just put up on Windler. It's a steel building, but in this case, it's going to have an entrance and an exit, so it's maybe two-sided for all intents and purposes. And again, they basically claim that that's roughly $110, $120 a square foot. Typical building we'd need for our larger equipment. And again, we maybe possibly can do this with a joint venture with a co-op with the Board of Ed. Building would be 30 by 100, 3,000 square foot, 350,000 for a building, another 150 for the car wash, $500,000. Something I wanted to put out this year. Again, it would be great to have it. I don't think we can afford it. I wish we could, but I would really like to consider possibly doing that for next year.
You said Lakewood is building one?
Yes. Matter of
Can
fact,
we have a co-op with them and maybe rather, I mean, they're fairly close proximity-wise. It always amazes me why 53 towns in one county all go off and buy 53 car washes. I mean, I just ask out loud if there's any benefit in having a conversation with them around where neighboring communities, can we go in that together and maybe we both pare down, our respective expenses.
I think in fairness to Public Works and their staff, I mean, they are the ones that see this equipment after the storms with the salt and the grime and all the, just the increased life of the equipment if you were
Sure.
to have something like this. And again, it's not just, the vehicles, the police cars, the trucks. It's the heavy equipment, the big equipment.
I just wonder, I mean, if getting it cleaned is getting it cleaned, I mean, I have to imagine if Lakewood is building one, that they're going to build it up to specifications to treat similar equipment. They're a larger municipality than we are. So I mean, it's a rhetorical question, but I don't know whether or not they're a neighboring town. Go to Lakewood and say, can we go in this together before you go finish it?
There's just about ready, it should be in here probably in March, this system. And we spoke with the company today, matter of fact, that is installing it into Public Works. It's $600,000.
They spent $600,000.
I think, Mayor, I think your point is would need to be analyzed in terms of travel time and man hours, and maybe the alternative, and it would have to be analyzed, was maybe it could be a revenue source for us as well.
Yeah, I mean, if we can build one and charge other towns, then perhaps that's the way to go about it.
You'd also try to get the Board of Ed involved with their school buses.
And charge them?
Yeah, I mean, same thing with how we do the gas pumps. We do 54, 46,
Joint
whatever.
services. I mean, that's the idea, is to have joint services, so.
But again, that was actually 200,000 of the 310, which was just the wash station, and again, the building was certainly separate. But, and it is something to consider, and it's something that I think ultimately we are going to need, because you're going to want to recycle the water, we're going to want to keep our things clean. And it's something that, what we have now, we actually, believe it or not, had a DEP inspection on the stormwater in the fourth quarter of '05. And he was impressed at how far ahead of a lot of towns we were. We passed with flying colors.
Mayor, I'm certain that the majority of towns under 15,000 are going to be looking to contract this service out, either
Mhm.
through a private company or if we can compete with them, or, you know, all things being equal after we analyze it. I think there'll be
Yeah.
opportunities.
I mean, if this poses an opportunity as a revenue generator for us, for neighboring municipalities, you know, maybe before we build it, we find out with Freehold Borough and Freehold Township and Neptune,
Certainly Farmington.
you know, would they be interested in being customers and signing an agreement if we agree to build it and they agree to be customers for, you know, 5 years so that we get the monies back? I mean, to my way of thinking, I'm not certain how anybody else feels about it, that's the kind of, that's how I would be more comfortable in making that kind of an investment, because it just doesn't make sense that there's 53 towns in the county and all 53 go off and build their own wash bays. It just, it might not happen, but even if 20 of them go off and do it, it wouldn't make sense. So to the extent we can, I like your concept, if we have to build one, then let's make sure we get some customers other than our own municipality, that we can get some revenue out of it. All right.
Okay, last couple items in there. I had stormwater inlet labeling for $10,000. Again, we need to label the
Has to be
inlets, drains to stream. So that inlet marking has to occur. So that was $10,000 there. Inlet retrofitting. Again, anytime we do in-house any kind of drainage work or overlaying, $40,000 there. Stormwater pollution prevention plan. Again, that's some of the policy making. That was done under CME, I believe, or one of the consultants last year. That's $50,000. Public education is required under the stormwater regs. That's $5,000, and employee training is $5,000. So if you were to take the vehicle car wash station for $200 and take that aside for the moment, it's $110,000 for everything else. And again, if you want to see that broken out, I can provide that for you. You want to leave $110 in to consider it at this point, and that's fine too. Either way makes no difference.
So similarly to the 310, you can get us that breakdown
Sure.
that shows these different things. Okay. Anything else that you have? Do you have the, no, you don't have sewer. Is there anything else on capital for Mr. Nunziato?
Well, as long as it's here, we got.
Do
Well,
J1?
I just still have my 1990 Jeep Cherokee that I'd like to upgrade.
You want a tracker?
On a track.
Oh, you're on upgraded classes.
It's just broken in.
It, I was requesting on the,
G1?
it's G1 on yours, yes. I guess I'm right
21,000?
on top. Yes, it's a replacement vehicle for my 4404, which is a 1990 Jeep Cherokee. And as of August of '05, it had 145,541 miles on it. And we wanted to replace it in kind with a four-wheel sport utility, and under state contract, it said full-size, half-ton, four-wheel drive, configured per 12.6 Warnock Dodge. It was contract T 2007, vehicle sport utility, and I believe it was a Dodge. I think it was a Durango, similar to the one at the Fire Bureau House, and it was $21,000. It was probably $20,000 and change, and I think we added a couple hundred for a radio.
Do you think the radio's excessive?
No, a actual,
Walkie-talkie?
right, the Public Works radio. Two-way radio, thank you.
So there's no serious satellite hooked up in these?
Hey, my township truck has roll-up crank windows, so it's okay. Yeah, we don't look for the frills.
My township truck. Okay, we'll take it under advisement, I think it's fair to say. I think we have to look at all, as you can imagine.
of course.
We can look at all the vehicles in one lump shot and see what we have the cost tolerance for. Anything else before we go back to DPW on capital? Okay, DPW capital. Speaking of vehicles. Come on up, Frank.
They're going 4 wide on us.
Let's just sell all the vehicles and give them 38 cents a mile.
That's what,
Yeah.
G3
We got a
is
$400,000 bike pass, nothing.
G3?
Okay, G3. G3, up at the, Public Works Equipment. My God.
You need a break?
Now, if memory serves before you guys get started, we, and last year's capital list is actually in or in the council's office. We spent money on several pieces of equipment last year. We bought or put money aside for dump trucks and certain things. So.
We're getting them this year.
You're getting them this year. Well, it takes time, unfortunately.
Over a year.
But we put the money in last June, is when the budget was finalized, probably. So, I mean, certainly it takes a while, but I guess this is all part of a big maintenance plan you're going to tell us about, right?
Sure we are.
Okay. So you're looking for a trailer-mounted leaf vacuum for $30,000.
Right.
I'm going to turn this over to Frank.
Okay, Frank.
I gave him the notes, but he can.
Okay. We're looking for two
So
for
it's two.
replacement, okay? One was approved for 2005, will be here at the end of the year. We received it February 16th.
Of this year?
Right, we received that.
Okay.
So we're looking for one more. The cost of this one that we just received was $24,999.
So you're putting in 30.
Right, because by the time we get it, the steel's going through the roof. The one we want to replace is a 1996, it's an American Road leaf box. It's 10 years old. It's just worn out. I mean, these things take a beating, as you can imagine, sucking the leaves through when they're wet and ice and everything else. And the box itself is 25 cubic yards. It's rotted.
All right, the two dump trucks, what are we replacing? Are two coming off, or are these two additional?
Okay, that's two coming off. One is, we call it PW55. It's a 1989. It's our oldest 5 to 7 yard dump truck we have in the fleet. It's a Series 1900. The problem with these trucks, these older trucks, is they used a mild steel body, dump body. And they were okay when we used to spread sand on the roads. But as time went on, we switched over to salt, which does a much better job. Because these bodies were mild steel, they rotted, especially when we switched to salt, that was the end of them. Trying to keep up with them. The firewalls also, there's just holes. I mean, you're all welcome to come down and I could show you these trucks. But what we want to do is with the new ones, we want to purchase with, as we've been doing in the past, all stainless steel. That's the only way to go now, that they'll last. And as far as, you'll see on the left, well, on mine, it says stainless steel sanders. We don't want to buy sanders. We want to buy unibodies, okay? What these unibodies are 5 to 7 yard containers that have the conveyor chain built into them. So you don't have to put an insert in the winter. I'm Italian, I talk with my hands. It's but, and then you have PW56 is the other one we want to replace. That's a 1990 International. That truck is 16 years old. And that also has the mild steel body.
The body's rotting away?
Yes, yes they are. And like I said, in the past, these things lasted so long. You got 1989, 1990. They lasted a long time because we used to spread sand, and sand was not corrosive. Now we use salt and calcium. It's highly corrosive. It just destroys these bodies.
So should we go back to sand?
No, no. Well, you know, another thing.
Why can't you?
Stormwater management.
We just have to sweep it with
You got to sweep it more.
Has to be
Yeah.
swept right away.
Yeah, within 1 week. The whole town would have to be swept within 1 week, and you have 2 sweepers.
Yes.
So you need 4 sweepers.
Day labor, the brooms. But sand doesn't, when you have a snowstorm, when you spread salt, if you get the salt down soon enough, it'll break the chemical bond. So when the plow comes along, it's gonna lift it right off the road. Sand isn't gonna do that. It's gonna really bond to the road, to the pavement, and that's not what you want.
Okay. What else?
Longevity, right?
Did you do the rack body with the plows?
That's,
No, okay, that was,
It's the two ground.
I'm sorry, the
Two
two in-ground truck lifts,
all right.
$100,000 each?
Yes. The in-ground truck lift, as you might recall, we had a direct fit replacement just recently done. We saved the town $46,000 on that deal. When the garage was built in 1978, I believe it was, at the time, we had 2 in-ground truck lifts that was put in when the building was built. One has since, they buried it. They just couldn't find replacement parts. This was before my time. And what they did is they put a Mohawk above ground 30,000 pound capacity lift in. The problem with that is that the newer trucks, these arms on these 30,000-pound lifts are not long enough to get to the chassis on these bigger trucks. I checked with the manufacturer, Mohawk, and they will not modify the arms in any way as far as putting longer arms or anything like that. So right now, we have one in-ground truck lift with a 24,000-pound capacity, okay, because that was a direct replacement. The new one we're looking for is a 60,000-pound capacity. And the reason why we want to go to 60,000 pounds, because we have a snowstorm in the winter. If you have a truck that comes in and it's fully loaded with salt, we no longer would have to empty it to put it up on a lift if it needs any repairs on the undercarriage. Whereas right now, if we have a truck that comes in and is a problem where we have to put it up in the air, the road department has to send a couple of guys out to empty it completely so we could have the truck to work on it.
How much do they weigh?
Which?
The trucks?
The truck's fully loaded?
Non-loaded.
Non-loaded, 18,000 pounds? 18? A little more than that, I think it is.
9 to 10 tons.
Is there anything in the middle there?
In the
Between
middle?
a 30,000 and a 60,000-pound lift?
Sure, but if you get something less than 60,000 pounds, it's not going to lift up a truck with the full load of salt on it.
What's the price difference between?
Yeah, you also, this in-ground lift is also not just for those trucks. It's also for the OEM trucks. It's for the entire fleet of first aid trucks. It's for the senior buses. It's a lot more than just the public works equipment. And right now, we presently have one lift that could do that. We have car lifts, and we have intermediate lifts that are 12,000 pounds and 16,000 pounds. But we really need these truck lifts. And like I said, the one truck lift we have is 24,000-pound capacity. It's good, but it's not good for when you have to pick up a truck that has a full load on it.
Out of a 5-day work week, how many days would you need that capacity?
The 60,000-pound, the full capacity,
Excuse me.
it depends on what they, what they're,
Oh, in the wintertime, obviously, chances are more, but...
Right.
Over the course of an annualized year, how often would you be using it?
I would say maybe twice a week, 2-3 times a week, depending on what Millie and Marty have the guys going out picking up.
That's one.
Okay, the rack body with plows. Fill us in what this is.
A truck with a rack and a plow.
But this is to replace the 1983, which that should solve it right there. 1983 truck. It's a PW38. It's a Dodge D350 that we have right now. It's a two-wheel drive, and it's a gas-powered engine. Cannot use it. It's pretty limited in its use. You cannot use it for snow plowing. You need a four-wheel drive vehicle for that.
Okay.
And based on the age alone, it's 23 years old. That should have been long gone. But what they've been doing with it is they've been utilizing that to carry around their block. What do you call it? Your barricades.
Okay.
Can I go back for 1 second, Frank? On these two in-ground truck lifts, do they both have to be 60,000 pounders, or are you asking for two 60,000-pound lifts?
Well, it would be nice. It doesn't have to be two 60,000 pounders. One we would really like to have, but the second one doesn't have to be quite that much. But I don't think that it's going to justify that $100,000. I don't think it's going to come down that much because you're talking the same amount of labor involved as far as installing. Whether you're going to install a 36,000-pound lift or a 60,000-pound lift is still the same amount of labor.
Do you think it might be 95 versus 100, or is it going to be 80 versus 100? That's what Bobby said.
You're right. I don't know. I don't think it would. I would have to say it would be more like maybe just an estimated guess would be probably 85 versus 100.
I'd like to know that answer, Frank, if possible.
I'll check.
Okay? Please.
The Beast Recycler.
That's out.
Didn't we talk about that last year?
Why, I feel like I've been talking about this Beast Recycler for years. All right, the utility body with lift gate. What is that? It's 80,000.
Okay. Let me turn the page here. What that is a shop truck. What we're looking to do, it's a shop truck that's fully enclosed that would have a hose maker in it, a hydraulic hose maker, would have a lift gate if you have to do a tire change on the road. What it is, it's a self-contained unit. It would have shelving in it to put parts into it. If you have any breakdowns on the road, it wouldn't eliminate the guy having to go back and forth to go and get parts, to go and get tools, but it sure would, lessen it.
So is this a real requirement, or is this something that would, I mean, if we don't have this in comparison,
Okay, well, right now what we're using is a Chevy, a 1998 Chevy S10 pickup truck, which is a very small pickup truck. It's two-wheel drive, and, it's just very small. And we wouldn't be able to do as many repairs on the road as we would if we have the enclosed utility body truck.
okay. What's the hot patch trailer? That's got to do something with paving?
Right, what the hot patch trailer is nothing but it's a hot box. It's got a propane heater on it, just like an oven. And what it does is it keeps their hot patch, you purchase the hot patch, it's hot, obviously, and it keeps it hot. They only have one now, the township. If they get to purchase another one, they'll be able to do more, obviously, pothole repairs. What they do now is they have to use a lot of cold patch, which is a temporary repair, because they don't have enough hot patch trailers to carry it around.
I'll just say to the council, as he continues, that a lot of what is being discussed right now is in the audit. Every one of these vehicles, as to what the benefits
Yeah.
and...
Oh, yeah.
I'm not supposed to discuss that, Councilman.
What? Well, no, I mean, I don't know if we should make any decisions on these things tonight.
Front-end loader, you're right. Just for your justification.
Yeah.
That's out, Mayor.
It's out? Okay.
So is the boom truck, the chipper's
Why is
out.
it showing in mine that it's in?
No.
We put it, we deferred it to next year.
That's
It's
2005.
For 2007.
Oh.
Okay. What is the boom truck with chipper?
Trim trees.
Out.
That's out?
It's out.
Why on mine is it showing up?
Look under
Well, it's
manager's
there, but look
approval.
under 0 for manager approval column.
Well, that says 2005 manager approval.
That's when we did the meeting.
Well, that's when I,
Misprint.
The meeting.
Oh, that's when you,
Yeah.
okay.
I just didn't update from
Oh,
last year. It
okay.
should be I
I'm sorry.
have corrected it tonight while noticed.
Gotcha. Three-sided storage building.
Millie, you could take that one.
Does this go next to the new Salto?
No.
We do have to talk about that too, by the way.
What?
The salt dome.
Oh, we don't need it anymore?
No, actually, we, well,
Do these three-sided
Yeah.
first.
what is it?
That means it's open to the
Go on,
outside
Millie.
air on one side?
Millie, you're on.
No, I'll explain it. What they want to do is utilize the back of the Public Works building. That would be one of the walls.
Yeah.
And then what they want to do is just have a closed building where they could store their plows in, trucks in. It's just extra storage. Because if you ever came down there at the end of the day and saw a storage facility now where we keep our trucks, it's probably a hazard.
You're gonna spend $120,000, $130,000 for pieces of equipment and trucks. I certainly don't want to see them outside if they don't have to.
I know you guys keep hating me saying this, but this very specifically was spoken about in the audit as to the benefits of it long-term and the savings involved.
Of course.
Is this as large as a pole barn, or is it larger, or would a pole barn be cheaper?
I don't have the specifics on the size. Is that what you have,
Yeah,
100
100
foot? Oh, okay.
I mean, can you put a pole barn up for less than this? If all you're looking for is a roof, I mean, obviously, whether it's warm or cold is irrelevant. But if you're looking for a roof, could you put a pole barn up?
I mean, it's the same thing. As long as the floor, if you did it in the parking lot and you didn't have to pour a floor, yeah, I mean, you probably could. You'd get it for about 100, 120, probably for the same size, yeah.
All right. What is the spreader for roll-off truck?
Okay, what this is, it says triple spreader, but it's supposed to have said double spreader. What it is it's an insert, but it's not used inside of a truck. It's for the roll-off. What it is a sander insert, but it's two of them that were made as one. It's one huge sander insert. The one that we have now is made out of mild steel. Again, going back to the mild steel. It's made out, it will corrode. I shouldn't say that. It is corroding. And what we want to do is get a stainless steel one in its place that's not going to corrode from the salt and the calcium. And like in Millie's notes here, it will enable us to carry and dispense a lot more salt and sand during snowstorms, and it cuts down the distance traveled from the north and many out road areas. Less trips back and forth to the Public Works garage.
Newtown, PSU, Thomas Pinnacle.
I want to just go back to one or two of the ones that we zeroed out for this year. For instance, the Beast Recycler, again, we talk about this thing every year. The tub grinder now, I guess, is what, 5 years old? I mean, it's a $150,000 item new, okay? And again, the hammers are very costly. There's going to come a time, and again, that thing doesn't owe us a dime, but it's going to come a time when we do have to replace that. And one of the reasons we had considered this beast is because you could actually take a lot of the bulk pickup, for instance, that we pick up, is furniture, wood,
Logs, whole trees.
you can take this stuff, grind it up, and make a product you could actually sell. So first, you're lessening your tipping fees on one side and possibly bringing in a revenue stream on the other side. Where with the hammers that we keep replacing on a continual basis, we'll get another year out of the tub grinder probably. But again, if the thing were to go down somewhere down the road, what we did in the past, we had somebody come in with a large machine and pay us per hour, per day, whatever they do, and we'll pay to have somebody process our material. The front end loader, again, I think we blew one up today on the side of the road.
Yeah, we've had a couple of problems, yeah. blew a hose.
Again, we use these things every day. If we do defer these things this year, next year, we're gonna say, guys, we can't keep doing this because we're gonna need them.
In this town, we have only two loaders, and they are used 8 hours a day, both of them. And when they go down, Marty Kelly's right in there saying, how long is it going to be? I said, give us a chance to check it out. But that is an important piece of equipment.
It's not only Public Works that utilizes this equipment, it's, Parks and Rec also. So it's, it's a double win.
I mean, as memory serves, we spent, and I don't remember what the total number was, but an extraordinary amount of money on equipment for the DPW in last year's budget. And obviously, which you're getting this year, of course. But it just...
Because these things, Mayor, they need to be replaced.
I think that the DPW budget in any town is probably one of the largest budgets.
Of course. And there's no question it's going to be the biggest.
DPW and engineering.
DPW, engineering, police. But it just, and this is not directed at you guys, it just in the, whatever, fourth, fifth budget that is least for me, it just always feels like when we're with you guys, it's always a crisis, and yet, we must have put aside, $4 million last year on dump trucks and equipment to, I never feel like we're getting outside of the crisis.
You're not, and I'll tell you why, like with the trucks, because...
We should. I mean, if we have a plan, there's got to be a way
It hasn't been a plan. It hasn't been a plan for the last 20 years.
to not always be in a crisis.
Well, that's what I talked about with offline, with Jeffrey. We need an overall maintenance program throughout the course of the town so that we never feel pinched. For instance, we just had the budget for that vehicle. We can't do it when we're forced to.
We can't expect you to continue to Band-Aid 1983 vehicles.
No.
But the problem is, apparently for a real long time, a lot of stuff just wasn't being bought, and now we're getting hit with it over a 3, 4, 5-year period, and it's unbelievable.
Well, it really started with not just with you, it started with the previous administration when there was a caravan of trucks brought up here at a budget meeting.
Yeah, and I was one of those guys that brought them up.
Frank was one of those guys because it went 3, 4, 5 years.
Without buying any.
Without buying anything.
And it was just getting, they were literally falling apart, so we brought them up here and showed them.
We brought them up here, and the governing body at the time went out and physically took a look at the pieces of equipment, and they were rust buckets, most of them. And the process that you've been going through and that the previous administration went through is replacement and remaining as current as you possibly can. This is a living, breathing organism, this community, and it doesn't stop growing. And unfortunately, the departments don't keep up with the growth because of economics and taxes. But a piece of equipment shouldn't be on the road for 22 years before it's replaced. It's an ongoing process. It never ends. It will never end. Whether you're here or I'm here or anybody's here, this process won't end of replacing the equipment. It's just ongoing. It's a cost. I look at it as a cost of doing business. That's really what it is. The only thing that we have to do is prioritize which items we need first.
Right.
Well, we need a plan.
I mean, there's got to be a... Okay.
To address
the big picture
your question about last year. Okay, I'm sorry.
To me, the big picture is a debt management plan. So everyone understands every year what sort of investments we ought to be making. And then taking this list and prioritizing them accordingly, according to the council's values.
Absolutely.
And our recommendations. But I understand because to me, it's hearing all these requests, they all seem, not just this department, but going back to a few Saturdays, they all seem to make sense. But yet, I feel that you have the same feeling that how does it all fit into a picture and a plan? And we'll be working on that. But I think, again, just to appreciate the departments are here to tell us what their needs are, and that's their jobs. And that's their responsibilities. So we shouldn't get too panicked because they're doing their jobs.
You're doing a good job tonight.
And I can honestly say, there's no fluff here. The stuff that we're asking for, we truly need.
You said, memory last year was, you improved a lot then. I pulled up last year's budget, that notwithstanding the salt dome, they asked for roughly $1 million worth of equipment, of which they were approved for $302,000, actually only 2 vehicles.
Some nice guy we were.
And that's why if you have a plan, and if you don't stick to the plan, that's where the plan falls off.
Obviously, we're going to go through the whole process before anything, but we all know, you guys know, that there is no way in hell that we're going to approve this budget as it's presented to us. So something's going to have to be cut somewhere along the line.
We understand that.
So I don't know if this is the time where we say, we know you need everything. We know that. I know that. But what is it that you really, really, really need that to get by and still provide the service to the people? I mean, in my view, that's because, looking at the budget and looking at the requests here, we got $28 million in capital expenses being requested. Actually, excuse me, let me just rephrase that. $28 million approved by the managers so far.
Well, 20 million is one item.
They were requesting 52 million.
Let's not make it sound like it's $28 million worth of trucks.
No, but I say capital requests.
One item, though, is 20 million in that request.
See, the thing is, we talk about a long-term range plan. I have that for Public Works, and I've had it ever since I've taken over as Director of Public Works in the last 9 years. When I came into the position, I knew right away, and I knew from being down in Public Works for over 20 years, what this department was going to need to survive. The overall picture that was presented to me at that time is that, okay, these are the trucks that we have. Basically, then we had all international. But as time went on, they're getting older and older. My plan, long-range plan for the next 5-10 years is to replace these old clunkers. All we're doing is replacing. We're not adding on, and we're not asking to add. We're not asking here to add on anything. All I want to do is replace things that is costing us, the township, money to keep on the road.
Eventually, just like the roads that haven't been fixed in town, one day you got to pay the piper for what was neglected.
Yeah.
And if we're using machines that are 1983, 1989, 1990, how many of us are driving 1989, 1990 cars?
Frank might be, but...
But Bob,
those are the exceptions.
It's mind-boggling because it's hard for me to comprehend. Maybe some of you who's been here longer than I have. I've only been here 12 years. It seems to me like nothing was done in this township for years.
That's correct.
You're right.
That's what Bruce had stated
They just-
before.
Right.
They went
5 years.
They went 4 or 5 years
No,
without
what
buying
did they
one
want?
single truck. You can't do that.
There was a time.
And that's
when-
not you guys. It's in the past.
Yes.
No, well, obviously, we're faced with, this reality now, it's a reality check, but, gosh, I can't comprehend that anybody sitting up here would be so responsible as to neglect the
Yes.
very basics.
Yes, they were. Yes, they did.
All right, well, we can't fix that now. We have to deal with today's issues.
Well, I would like to thank the department for coming out and doing a
Absolutely.
terrific job.
Thank you.
And
No
educating me.
And we know that,
Presenting
you
everything.
guys up there have a hell of a job to do too. Okay, and believe me, we all appreciate that, and we understand it, and we know what you guys go through, and you know what us, as department heads are trying to do within our own departments. We do the best we can. with what we got.
You guys doing a good job.
Yeah, clearly. Is there anything else on capital we need to get through tonight?
No, just in terms of the rest of the program, I think what we'd like to do is cover buildings and grounds at our next meeting.
Okay.
And I had indicated that we might go through a sort of a big picture scenario where we stand, but I think in listening to the council, you've provided a lot of guidance that's sort of made our analysis in need of tweaking now. So you might have that, maybe we'll do that at the next meeting as well.
I think that's perfectly fine. Everyone agree? I mean, there's so much alteration. To put a number on the board now and say it's blankety-blank cents is probably...
Would scare everybody.
It would scare people.
I'd recuse myself.
But I am interested, Jeffrey, where we are.
Well, he gave you the papers.
Yeah, maybe
Before
you
we
guys take
started
that
tonight,
offline, because
Okay.
that gets out there where
All right.
some blankety-blank tax increase right now.
Okay,
Sit there with you with all numbers, a guesstimate on what we're gonna have to
We're
put on
good.
the capital,
We're
a
good.
complete guesstimate.
We're good.
And I gave you a number of 17 cents, which is what the computer's reading right now. They're definitely completely raw numbers.
Right, well, 7 cents is not bad.
17.
7, you said. I thought you said 7. Let's not get the community in an uproar.
I heard you, man.
7, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what you said?
Exactly what you said, man, 7 cents.
I think we're done for tonight, Mayor.
Yeah, I think we are, but before we do that, just from a scheduling, first of all, again, thank you guys in particular. I know
Thank you very much.
that you wound up sticking here for quite a while. And on a serious note, please don't misunderstand, our concern, our frustration. We have a responsibility to give you the tools and the resources you need to do the jobs that you're held accountable to perform.
Right.
The challenge that we have, and you've heard me say this, and the people that have come before us, is we have to try and balance how we're going to pay for what you need and still contemplate the size of the anticipated local and regional Board of Ed increases, the county fire tax increase, the fire tax increase, the county increase, the reevaluation, limited revenues that are coming in from multiple sources, people on fixed incomes, the needs for new buildings, and, state aid being what it is, and so it gets frustrating. So please don't misinterpret
No, not at all.
our frustration. It is not in any way directed at you guys. It's a global dilemma that how do we make up for years of neglect in a 3, 4, 5-year span, and it is devastating. Because obviously you're not asking for these things just because you'd like to have new toys. We know that. And the report, which you will see as department heads, will certainly bear out what you're talking about. It's just a function of how do we juggle it all and be mindful of the people around here who get stuck paying the bills. So,
Right. And whatever you five decide, we'll make it work.
well, you've always been kind in that way, and we appreciate it. So, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
If we may, I think what we need to do is, since we're all here, we have to set aside some time to go through the auditors, the efficiency, I don't want to call it an audit report, the efficiency evaluation. And I think we also need, for you, Mr. Zanecki, maybe to come up with a recommendation for us. Prior to your arrival, we made a commitment that obviously this report would be shared with the department heads. And that there's no hidden agenda, there's no secrets, whatever's in the report will be shared unaltered, good night, folks, will be shared unaltered with the management leadership within the community under your direction. So I don't know if we want to pick a date now, but I think
we should. I think we absolutely should.
Yeah, I think it needs to be a separate meeting, and perhaps you had some observations as well.
I do want to make the suggestion that I think the report ought to be presented to you and summarized by the professional who wrote it or someone from his
Correct.
staff. So it's not coming from you. So questions can be asked, follow-up questions. And then the professional also give the same report to the department heads collected together. So he is the linchpin, sort of, the hinge between the two.
That's a great idea.
That is an excellent idea. Can we try and then, if we need to bring in Jersey management, we're going to have to get their schedule. So perhaps, your direction, you can set one up, sort of simultaneously with the department heads, and then also, for a special evening with us. We do have that Tuesday middle meeting. It might be too short a notice to do it this March, which, whatever, 2 weeks from
The 14th?
I don't know if March
Public
14th is
participation
possible
meeting.
to do it at the public participation, or maybe we just pick another night. Maybe we pick a Wednesday or a Thursday, or, whatever it is. Maybe you guys can get back to us
My
on
only
whatever the right
concern,
meeting is.
You didn't want to actually talk about it in public yet. 'cause
Well, that's the
There's
second.
a lot of personnel discussions in
Yes,
this.
that's the second piece of this is, and I know we don't have Mr. Gannon here tonight, but originally, there was certainly sensitivity toward talking about the report in a public forum until such time as certain things could be vetted out that may be personnel, labor-related.
There's a
While we
lot
can
of
share
that.
with the department heads, it might not be something to have an open presentation. So, subject to your consultation with council, perhaps it can be more legitimately effectuated we open up the meeting, we go into closed session, they come back and give us, the examination, because invariably it's going to raise labor issues, contract issues, staffing issues, compensation issues, all things that we can't talk about up front.
We'll make it a priority to come up with a suggested format and run it through the attorney, and also run it through Jersey Professional Management. And I'm sure they have experience doing this. And then we'll make that a priority to get you a memo about that as soon as possible.
Terrific. Is there anything else, Mr. Zernecki, we need to do tonight?
No, no.
Mr. Mayor, I think
Okay.
we need to open it to the public.
We do. Before we do that, just as a house cleaning item, our next council meeting is, in fact, Tuesday, the 3rd, is it? What's Tuesday's date?
7?
Is it the 7th? I'm sorry. Tuesday, March,
Yeah, 7.
yeah, Tuesday, March 7th. Is that the public participation list?
Yes, it is.
Okay, we do have someone from the audience, so we'll open up the meeting to the public for anyone who'd like to be recognized this evening. Anyone who'd like to be recognized?
Can I ask a question?
You need to come on up.
There you go, all right.
You need to come up to the microphone, please, and just give us your name and address. Is it on the budget?
Yes.
Oh, terrific.
Of course.
Okay,
I don't know, it doesn't have to be on, there's nobody behind me.
it's okay.
All right, Sandra Solly, Birdsall Road, Farmingdale.
Welcome.
I wanted to ask about the recycling. I don't understand why each new house has to be an additional cost, because like 40 to 50% of people recycle. The others are taking it to the recycling center themselves. So we're paying additional money to have that taken away, I guess. and not
Well, that
paying
has
any
not
money.
been taken away.
Well, whatever. Are we paying for that recycling that's being left over here to go somewhere? Or are we getting money back for it?
Okay, the question is, we still have our DPW department head, so perhaps she may want to re-enter the room and that she hasn't left the premises.
No, I'm just asking.
It's a great
because
question, and it's a terrific
On my
question.
road, like one half of the people put it out.
All right, here's, the question is, we still have people who come to recycling center, and they, rather than leave it out on the curb, they're dropping it off there. And let's say one of those people is a new homeowner, and yet the contract may include a provision that for every new house that springs up, they get to increase the contract in spite of the fact that that person doesn't put it out curbside and they never stop and pick up.
Well, they may not put it out curbside this week, but they may put it out curbside next week.
Right.
You still have to provide, and we're talking about not resales, we're talking about brand-new developments, brand spanking new. They're afforded the same services as, those that have lived here for 40 years.
Right.
Okay.
The paper says only 50% of people are recycling. And I know people throw it in the trash, so that means it's going to the dump. We're paying for recyclables, going to the dump.
I think it's solid. The problem is that we don't know which 50% is recycling and which 50% is breaking the law.
Right.
So we as a township must provide for every house.
No, I understand that, but we're paying for it, and this company that has the contract, I think they're from Hamilton. That means we got to pay them to drive here from Hamilton. So
Well,
I don't understand that.
Keep one thing in mind, Ms. Solly, it goes out to an open public bid.
No, I understand that.
So unfortunately, you raise a great observation.
Yeah.
They may have a compound nearby. They could be headquartered in Hamilton with a regional office in Lakewood, for all we know. But
They do Freehold, they do Jackson.
yeah,
Now they do Hamilton.
and candidly, if they come up with a low bid, they could travel.
No, I'm just asking if
some
they have to
distance.
drive that additional distance, then
Sure.
more PAL or Freehold Recycling.
Well, interestingly, who was the firm that had the contract? And they're local.
Freehold, yeah.
They're in Freehold. and they came in higher than a bidder that may be traveling from Hamilton. So apparently proximity didn't weigh in too much.
You know, they're not only into the recycling of curbside materials, they do hazardous waste. They do a lot more than what, say, this company does. They're strictly recycling, this company. FCI was involved in a lot of stuff. But they did come in higher, and I was really surprised myself.
Yeah. No, I was just wondering, because I just don't understand why we would have to pay for 28,000 houses.
No, it's actually 18,554 homes.
Oh, it's 18,000, okay. I thought it was properties in Howell, okay. But we're paying for that, but they're not all using that service, so I don't understand why.
Well, keep one thing in mind, just to help put it in perspective. Every taxpayer pays into the school system. They all don't have children.
No, I understand
Everyone
that.
pays for police protection, and thank goodness not
understand
everybody
that.
has to call 911. And yet, we have an obligation to make the service available to them in the event that they ever need to use it. And I think it's a similar
Right.
analogy here, is we have an obligation to see to it that everyone has access to recycle their home products in a way that is safe and is helpful to the environment. And so not everyone may use it, but we still have an obligation to make certain they have access to it.
Well, still, but they're taking it to this recycling center. Isn't that costing us something? We have to have employees there.
Mrs. Zernecki, maybe you can help us.
I just take a crack at this. When the mayor went down the road of saying this, the contract is awarded competitively, meaning the companies who want to compete for it take into account all their costs and the expenses and the opportunity for profit. And there's a lot of input that they take in analyzing what kind of offer they're going to make to us. One of those inputs is something called a tonnage report that the state comes out with. So when they start thinking about how much they're going to charge us, they take into account how much is going to be collected based on past experience. So in a way, that savings is taken into account when the bid is offered. That in theory, that's what's happening.
All I know is we're duty-bound to recycle. And if people choose not to recycle, and they choose to take it to the recycling center, why can't everybody just put it on the curb? Then we wouldn't have to have employees over at the recycling center.
Well, that's an interesting observation. Perhaps it's something we should talk about in the budget.
if it's a
I mean, if we
state
have somebody,
law.
if we have people getting curbside,
I mean,
why do we still allow people to go drop it off? I don't know the answer. It's a rhetorical question.
Well, you have a lot of residents that like to come to our recycling center. It's not only the recycling, your normal recycling that they're dropping off. They might have
Batteries or...
batteries, household batteries, car batteries that are not from curbside.
And waste
All right.
oil.
Well,
Waste oil.
I think that your point is a good one, Ms. Solly, and it is one we should talk about.
Right.
And it relates to, we're providing curbside pickup. The township obviously the taxpayers are paying for it. Everyone is entitled to access to it. If some aren't using it and they're using the drop-off instead, is that something we should look at? Maybe we should.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for your observations.
It's not only that, they drop off the leaves, they drop off.
Well, I think in fairness to Ms. Solly, maybe they can continue to drop things off other than what is available to be picked up at your curb. And I'm not suggesting we should do that, but I think the point is a fair one. If whatever, in my case, I think it's the first and third Monday of the month, we're out there putting our stuff out. And so if I have access to that, do I also need access at an expense to the community to also be able to go drop it off at the same time? I don't know the answer. It's a rhetorical question.
I go to the...
All right, so he's one of the reasons why we're paying twice.
Yeah, I got it.
Don't we sell our recyclables?
We get the reimbursed for our cardboard.
Tin,
and for,
aluminum?
Cans, the bimetal cans, the white goods, the appliances. And the majority,
That's what I thought.
honestly, it's gonna be half and half. You have your seniors that like to take it off.
So it's not just an expense, there is a revenue to it as well.
There's clearly the revenue, but I think, again, to Ms. Solly's point, unless the revenue outweighs the expense of maintaining the drop-off there in conjunction with still having the services provided at the pickup, It's not something we're going to fix tonight. We appreciate your comments, and it's a good point. All right, anyone else who'd like to be recognized from the public? Mr. Nunziato? Oh, okay. I'm going to close the public portion. Again, house cleaning. Our next meeting, obviously, is a workshop session, 7 p.m. For the council.
Budget next Monday.
I'm sorry, we have a budget meeting on Monday. That is correct. Monday, the 6th.
We're here Monday and
So we'll
Tuesday.
be back here then, and
And you're bringing dinner for,
Yeah, Mayor, don't forget me Monday.
I'll call you before I pick up my pizza order.
Just as a reminder, Monday the 6th is the one day that I have big difficulties with, so.
Okay. Ms. Minato? Thank you. We appreciate your being here as well and supporting Mr. Filiatro and the finance team.
I do too, because I can't take notes and do the computer all at the same time.
Well, we don't say thank you enough, so thank you for being here. Okay, any other business?
no, sir.
Hearing none, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you,
Aye.
folks.